still muted from last night. There we go. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the stream, and welcome back to a not normal stream, because we don't normally go live at 4 PM on a Friday. Don't worry, 40k After Dark will still be here at 21:30 later, and we're about to watch everyone go, it's muted, it's muted. I know, people, right? We got that, okay. But this is a special stream. Why is it a special stream? Why is it a special stream? It's a special stream because we have this. So the first thing I have to say is a big thank you and a big shout out to Games Workshop for sending us the new Leviathan rule set for 10th edition 40k. This is the brand new rulebook. This is the moment you've all kind of been waiting for a bit, I guess, because today we can only talk about this particular tome, this rulebook. And we're going to sit here on stream and we're going to go basically through it. We're going to try and learn the edition together, although I will confess I have had this in my hands for nearly a month now. Some of you may have noticed a distinct lack of interest in 9th edition from the team. It's because we've been busy trying to learn 10th edition 40k for the upcoming games that we will in fact be doing in the near future. The first one of which is already scheduled on the channel, so make sure you're around at 10 AM tomorrow morning UK time so you can hang out with us on stream as Joe and I play Space Marines versus Tyranids. Click the hint, right? 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, Space Marines versus Tyranids. Brand new edition is here. I am incredibly excited. Now, the first thing I want to say, specifically if you did hang out with us on stream last night, is firstly, a big thank you to everybody who donated, everybody who super chatted, everybody who gifted memberships. Support yesterday was incredible. I mean, if we can do that every single stream, impossible, right? But if we could do that every single stream, Jesus, we could have staff and all kinds of stuff in the near future. So thank you so much for that. Secondly, I am a little bit sorry that it was a bit of an angry, ranty stream. I think most of you can understand why. If you haven't watched it, if you're not sure what I'm talking about, you can go and check out that stream. It's still up on the channel. But I want to call them out when they do bad things, and so we called them out because they did a bad thing. This is a good thing, okay? This is a really good thing. I am incredibly positive about this as an edition of Warhammer 40k. I actually currently think this is probably going to be my favourite edition of Warhammer 40,000, and that's saying something. I've enjoyed 9th. I loved 8th at the start. I really like 7th, right? This is brilliant, in my opinion. There's a couple of little issues that we'll talk about as we go through this rulebook, but at some point in the very near future, not sure if I can actually... Fuck it. Next Saturday at 10 o'clock in the morning, you can pre-order this yourselves if you're in the UK. Don't know if I'm allowed to say that. Who knows? But you can, right? So very, very soon, you guys will be able to get your hands on this book. Like I said, massive shout out to Games Workshop for giving me a copy of this so that I can review it for you people. Now, long story short, review, great. Love it. Looks good. Looks fantastic. Okay. We'll go through what I can with limited resources because all I've got is this book to show you. Okay. I don't have a top-down camera because I don't want to just show you all of the pages and then everyone screenshots it. But let's be honest. At 3 PM today on the Warhammer community page, and we'll show you this with a little bit of quick-based wizardry. At 3 PM today on the Warhammer community page, this article went live, okay? Download the new Warhammer 40,000 rules for free right here. English, French, Italian, German, Spanish, and other countries that I'm not entirely sure what they are. Excuse me, obviously Asian countries. It's June, which means that Warhammer 40,000 Leviathan is out this month. To whet your appetite for this bumper new box of far future delights, we are releasing the 4 cool rules online for free right now, okay? Here's the rules, 62 pages, blah, 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 blah. It says a learn to play video, but this is done by Games Workshop, so I would suggest you do not watch this one because it's terrible. Joe and I will be learning it live tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning, okay? 10 o'clock in the morning, we will be learning it together tomorrow. Okay, we've done a little bit of mucking around. We haven't played a full game yet. I've actually purposefully... this is a gamble for me as well, right? This is a gamble for me. By the way, yeah, if you click it, obviously, you just get to download the full PDF, which is, I don't know, open the PDF and you'll see the rules, okay? But we won't do that now. So I've taken a bit of a gamble with tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Why have I taken a gamble? I have purposefully not actually played a full game of 40k from start to finish with the team yet, okay? There's a caveat with it just a minute. So Joe will be playing 10th edition for the first time officially live on stream tomorrow. Okay? So, get excited. You'll get to learn with us at 10 o'clock in the morning tomorrow morning. Okay? You can have your rulebooks ready. What we're going to do today is we're going to go through this very, very briefly. Most importantly, if you want to ask questions about the rulebook, if you want to get questions in, you can chuck them on chat, obviously. Chat's going to be probably moving quite quickly. If you want to guarantee I answer your question at some point throughout the stream, you obviously can stick it on a super chat as well, and that guarantees I get to it. I'll try and get to questions anyway. I don't want you to feel like you have to, but it just guarantees it, okay? So, when I had that caveat that Joe will be playing it for the first time tomorrow on stream tomorrow, that's because I've already played a full game of Warhammer 40k. I was very, very lucky to be invited by Games Workshop themselves to an exclusive event the evening before Warhammer Fest on the Friday, whereby we had a briefing from the design team and we were given the opportunity to play a full game of Warhammer 40k. And I was lucky enough to play against one of the design team, who happens to also be a fan of the channel, which was super humbling. So I have in fact played a full game of Warhammer 40,000 10th edition, and I played that game a month ago. So I have played this rule set already. I really like it. I'm a big fan of this. I think it's going to be more fun. I think for the non-competitive gamers out there, I think people are going to enjoy themselves a little bit more than they have done in previous editions. And I think that even if you come up against a competitive player, you're probably going to enjoy yourself slightly more than you have in previous editions, because I feel like they've done a lot of work. I feel like it feels to me like they've spent a lot of time trying to remove some of the jank from the game that has existed in the last edition or two. Okay, so I'm very positive for that. Anyway, new edition of 40k. Let's talk about some changes, all right? Let's go right back to the start of the new edition of 40k, right? So there was a number of phases before. Before we had the command phase, we still have the command phase. We then had the movement phase, we've still got the movement phase. We then had the psychic phase, that's gone. We had the charge phase, which is still there. As the shooting phase, which is still there, the charge phase, which is still there, the fight phase, which is still there, and then we had the morale phase, and the morale phase is gone as well. So it's gone from 7 phases down to just 5, okay? Which is already a bit nicer. It's a bit tastier, okay? The command phase is quite simple. The command phase is basically broken down into 2 sections, the command section and the battle shock section. So the command section is where both players gain a CP, and you resolve any rules that say that you resolve them in your command phase, okay? So that's in number 1 command, okay? Resolve any other rules that occur in the command phase is what it says. You will also notice, if you look at the rules, if you downloaded them, that they have the long description piece. Hang on, where we're going. The long description piece in front of you here, and then they have the bullet points, right, to make it easy for you guys to understand. So once you've done your command abilities, you then move straight into your battle shock phase, where you take battle shock tests, right? Battle shock's very, very simple. You roll 2d6. You have to get above the leadership value that is shown on your data card. So the lower the better. You roll 2 dice. If your leadership is 6+ and you roll a 7, you pass your leadership, right? Take a battle shock test for each unit from your army on the battlefield that is below half strength. Half strength is described. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Roll 2d6. If it's greater than or equal to the unit's characteristics, the test is passed. So if you have a leadership of 6+ and you roll a 6, you pass the test, right? If you fail, your objective control characteristic goes to 0, and you cannot be affected by any stratagems until you take your next battle shock test. And then if you're successful, you go back to your original objective control value, and you can then be targeted by stratagems, okay? Why is objective control 0 so important? Because if you are the only unit on an objective and your objective control is reduced to 0, you do not hold that objective, and therefore you won't count as holding it for the sake of scoring points on things like primary objectives. Okay, so objective control 0 is a big deal, right? What is below half strength? Well, if you are a unit of a number of models, let's say 10, below half strength is quite obvious, below 5, right? It says if a unit has a starting strength of 1, however, right, to be below half strength with its remaining, it is said to be, words, people, I'm excited. Can you tell I'm excited? It is said to be below half strength when its remaining number of wounds is less than half of its wounds characteristic. Okay, so even a model of 1, a tank, a dreadnought, not a Leviathan apparently, a character, if they are 10 wounds and they're then below their half number of wounds, they count as being below half strength. Right? For any other unit, while the number of models in that unit is less than half of its starting strength, that unit is said to be below half strength. Let's be clear about this though. It says below half strength, right? Less than half of its starting strength. So if a unit is 10 models, half of its starting strength is 5. So at the point in which it's 5, it's not less than half of its starting strength. It is half of its starting strength. So the way that I've interpreted this, they have to be less than half of their starting strength, which is exactly how it's worded, right? Let's read it again. For any other unit, while the number of models in that unit is less than half of its starting strength, it is said to be below half strength. So if you have 10 wounds, you have to be 4 wounds or less before you take battle shock. If you have 10 models, you have to be 4 models or less before you take battle shock. Fine, 5 is fine, right? Okay, beautiful. Destroyed I mean, we know what destroyed means, an attached unit. So this is an interesting differentiation. I'm not sure if they've explained this before, right? The starting strength of an attached unit is equal to the combined starting strengths of all the units, i.e. the number of models in the leader unit added to the number of models in the bodyguard unit. So if you do have a unit of 10 and you add a single leader to your unit, you end up with 11 models, okay? Half of 11 is 5.5, at which point, if you do go down to 5 models at that point, you're obviously then below half strength, right? That's important. If you add a character, instead of below half strength being 4 models, it then becomes 5 models before you start taking battle shock, right? If either the leader unit or the bodyguard unit in an attached unit is destroyed, the starting strength of the remaining unit is changed to be equal to its original starting strength. So if you have a bodyguard of 10 Primaris Marines and you have a Primaris Captain and you kill all 10 Primaris Marines, the Captain then goes to his original starting strength of 1 model, and therefore he's only below half strength when he goes below half wounds. So if you kill all 10 Primaris Marines, he then isn't automatically taking battle shock from then on, okay? For the purposes of rules that are triggered when a unit is destroyed, such rules are triggered when one of the individual units are made up of an attached unit is destroyed, the leader or the bodyguard unit, okay? Cool, there we go. So that's a differentiation that I feel like people might miss. I'm going to try and pick out things that people might miss, you know, things that have changed slightly, because otherwise the edition's not too dissimilar to 9th on the whole, right? I have a bottle of juice as well. I need to keep my throat lubricated because I was very ranty yesterday. So the movement phase, right? Phase number 2, the movement phase. You have 2 steps of the movement phase. You have the movement phase and you have reinforcements, okay? Movement's pretty normal, okay? Unless the unit is within engagement range of enemy models, it can make a normal move or advance or remain stationary. If it is within engagement range, it can either remain stationary or fall back, okay? It's as simple as that. Right, remaining stationary is remaining stationary. Normal moves is a normal move up to M inches on the data sheet, which you've seen already. You cannot move normally within engagement range of any models unless you've got a rule that specifies otherwise, a la Khorne Berserker Blood Surge, right? Advanced movements is your move plus D6 inches typically. You cannot again move within engagement range, and units that advance cannot shoot or charge this turn normally. There are obviously exceptions. Fallback is you do your normal move to fall back, but there are occurrences where you take a desperate escape test, okay? Models can move over enemy models when falling back, but you must take a desperate escape test. So you do take desperate escape tests if you're battle shocked, but you can't be wrapped anymore, okay? If you're wrapped by enemy models and you can move through that unit, which normally you can't do, if you do that with this, you can then take a desperate escape test in order to try and move out of the way. So you can't be wrapped anymore, right? Desperate escape tests are very simple. Roll a d6 and a 1 through a 2, 1 model from your army is destroyed. So they are quite punishing. It's not the kindest thing in the world, but it gives you something. It's better than everything being destroyed, right? Okay, beautiful. Moving over terrain is very, very interesting. Sorry, they give you an example with infantry where you have like the pipes and the lower level terrain and how you can move over that stuff quite freely, basically. And then it gives you a height where that then is no longer the case. And then you can keep, you have to measure the vertical distance, okay? That's different with fly now. Fly's changed quite a lot, okay? You now measure the angular distance rather than just measuring the horizontal distance. If a model can fly, then when it makes a normal move, advance, or fallback move, it can be moved over enemy models as if they were not there, and can be moved within engagement range of any models when making such a move. Now, this also means that monsters and vehicle models that can fly can be moved over other monster and vehicle models when making such a move. However, models that can fly cannot end their move on top of any other models within engagement range of any enemy models. When a model that can fly starts or ends its move on a terrain feature, instead of measuring the path it has moved across the battlefield, you instead measure its path through the air as shown in the diagram below. Okay, that's interesting. So you don't just go horizontal to horizontal, I'm on top of this terrain feature. You have to actually measure the path. It's a bit more narrative. It restricts movement ever so slightly. I actually quite like it. I'm a big fan, right? Then you move into the reinforcement step of the movement phase, which is part 2. So a unit that starts the battle in a location other than the battlefield is counted as being in reinforcements. It always counts as having made a normal move when they arrive or are set up on the battlefield. Any specified distance from enemy models applies to the horizontal distance. Okay, it's no longer measured from base to base. Oh, I'm actually within 9, but I'm not within 9. I'm actually within 3 because you're up high, so I just charged 3 and I'm within 5. Right, that's not that. It's horizontal distance for everything now, okay? And any reserve unit not set up on the battlefield by the end of the battle counts as destroyed. There's interesting differentiation right now, and I don't know if this will be changed in their match play pack or their tournament pack, is that it says you can set up reserves in any turn. Like, it doesn't, like, after turn 3 they're destroyed anymore. You just get to keep putting them on. Okay. Any questions so far? Big shout out first of all, because I've just seen some things have been coming through. Noddles, thank you for gifting 1. Cody, thank you for the 5. Hype indeed. Lehman Ross says, where is Joe, the national treasure that we must protect? He's at home. He's got toothache today, but he was going to be at home. He doesn't live in my house. I know people believe he lives in my basement, but he doesn't. He will be here tomorrow morning for the demo game, for the preview game. Stick Monkey, thank you for the 5. Gifted, you're a hero. Soups, thank you for the 5. How can I get a special ream, or is that just part of Joe's reach around service? Yes, it is. Pay for it. Chris, thank you so much for the gifted membership. You're a hero. Craftworld, Altonzar, thank you for the 5. Could you go over what psychic special rule is? Yep, we'll get to that, mate, I promise you. And Richard Drinkwater, welcome to the channel as a member. You are a hero. So I have to add the 7 gifted to that total so far. So thank you so much, people. You're amazing. I love you very dearly for this. For the bonus stream. Don't forget we have still got 40k After Dark as well, right? Don't you worry. Don't you worry. Right, so transports are a thing now, okay? Transports have gained typically a lot of capacity. So Space Marine Rhinos have extra capacity, so you can put a character in, which is really nice. And they have this new firing deck ability, right? So if on a transport you see a firing deck X, that's a firing deck, and then a number. The X will be replaced by a number. A number of models embarked within that transport can shoot out of the transport. And I'm adding commas to this on purpose, okay? Because it works differently to how people might think, right? I'll read it. Well, some transport models have firing deck X listed in their abilities, okay? Each time such a model is selected to shoot in the shooting phase, you can select up to X models embarked within it. Then for each of those embarked models, you can select one range weapon that embarked model is equipped with. Until that transport model has resolved all of its attacks, it counts as being equipped with all of the weapons you selected in this way, in addition to its other weapons. Right, so if you have a Space Marine in a Rhino with a multi-melter, you can select that Space Marine if it has a firing capacity, and you can select that multi-melter. Now, as you guys have seen from the previews, a weapon profile now has the type, the special rules, the range, the ballistic skill, the number of attacks, the strength, the AP characteristic, and the damage. You just take that one line and you attach it to your transport. So the model isn't strictly firing it, the Space Marine isn't strictly firing it, the Rhino is firing that weapon, okay? So anything that impacts or affects the Rhino's ability to shoot, it then impacts the model inside. So if, for example, the Rhino is re-rolling something because of an aura, or it's got +1 to hit because of an ability, that firing model gets the same benefits because the Rhino just essentially uses its weapon profile. Hopefully that makes sense, right? Embark is still pretty similar. Disembark has changed a bit though. So Embark is very, very easy.
For your integrity fund. Authenticity is the new currency, and you have it, good sir.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. It's important to me, right? I have not yet received an angry email. I was waiting for one, if I'm honest with you. I thought one was coming. Okay. So embark is normal. You can embark a friendly transport if all of its models end a normal move, advance or fallback move within 3, not wholly within 3. That makes sense. You can't embark and disembark in the same phase. That's normal. But disembark has changed. Okay. If a unit from your army starts your movement phase embarked with a transport model, then that unit can disembark in that phase. When a unit disembarks from a transport model, set it up on the battlefield that it is wholly within 3 inches of that transport model and not within engagement range of any enemy models. If for any reason a disembarking model cannot be set up, that model's unit cannot disembark. Okay. Units that disembark from a transport model that either remain stationary this phase or has not yet made a normal move, advance, or fallback move this phase can then act as normally, make a normal move, advance, shoot, declare a charge, fight, etc. In the remainder of the turn, such a disembarking unit cannot choose to remain stationary. Okay, they just count as having made a normal move, right? Units that disembark from a transport model that has made a normal move this phase count as having made a normal move themselves. They cannot move further during this phase. Such a unit also cannot declare a charge in the same turn, but can otherwise act normally in the remainder of the turn. Units cannot disembark from a transport model that either advanced or fell back this turn, right? Which is different to previously. You can now disembark after a Rhino has moved. You can't charge and you can't move, but you can disembark. And that is unless the transport has rules that say you can do otherwise, okay? Now, destroyed transports has also changed, okay? If a transport model is destroyed, any units embarked within that transport model must immediately disembark, the opposite before transport model is removed from the battlefield. Units that disembark from a destroyed transport model are not affected by that model's deadly demise ability, explodes basically, right? Instead, you must roll a d6 for each disembarking model. Okay, right? For each roll of a 1, that disembarking model's unit suffers 1 mortal wound. In addition, if a unit disembarks from a destroyed transport model, until the start of the controller's next command phase, they count as being battle shocked. Until the end of the next turn, that unit counts as having made a normal move this turn and cannot declare a charge this turn. Okay, so if I shoot at Joe's Rhino and I blow it up and he's got 10 Chaos Space Marines inside, he has to roll 10 dice. For every 1, it suffers a mortal wound. That's a big deal. It used to be our model died. It's now a mortal wound, okay? The reason why I think this is a big deal, because it means if an exploding vehicle, if there's a crumpling wreckage that gets smashed to bits by las cannons, a guardsman might be killed, a Space Marine might just take a wound this time, okay? So it might be that a Space Marine takes a wound, and then the whole unit actually survives, but there's just a wound off, which I actually quite like that. Narratively, I quite like that. A super soldier is more likely to climb out of an exploding wreckage with no problems compared to, say, for example, a Sister of Battle or something like that, right? So I'm a big fan of that one. Now, importantly, objective control goes to 0. Why is that? Because they become battle shocked. Why is being battle shocked important? What we saw a lot of in 9th edition, a little bit of jank. I did this myself. I specifically did it quite well with Eldar. I also did it with World Eaters. You park your transport full of infantry onto an objective. And you're like, I've got that objective double held. What do I mean by it being double held? It means that if someone destroys my transport, I just get my objective secured troops out onto the objective, and then I hold the objective still. So you can blow up my Harlequin's boat, and then my 5 players get out and just stand on the objective and go, cool, we still hold the objective. But now, that's not the case, because they become battle shocked. They're automatically battle shocked, which means their objective control goes to 0. So if you get out of the transport and you stand on the objective, and you're the only unit there, your objective control is 0. You don't hold it anymore. So that's obviously a big deal, okay? Not being able to charge out of destroyed transport is pretty standard. That stopped people from trying to auto-blow up their own rhinos and then charge after they've already advanced, right? But hey, that's fine. Emergency disembarking. If a transport model is destroyed and is not possible to set up disembarking unit wholly within 3 inches of that transport model, and not within engagement range of any enemy models, then that unit must instead perform an emergency disembarkation. This is performed as described for disembarking from a destroyed transport model, except that a unit a unit that does so must be wholly set up within 6 inches rather than 3. Okay, so basically, if you can't satisfy the normal conditions for disembarking a unit and being within 3, you have to do it within 6. Okay, the difference is you suffer a mortal wound on a roll of a 1 to a 3 rather than just a 1. Now, this used to be a stratagem. Emergency disembarkation or emergency breakout used to be a stratagem. This is just a thing you can do now. Okay, costs you no CP. The risk is high though. So if you've got 10 guys getting out, mathematically you're taking 5 mortal wounds. So the risk is high, but taking 5 mortal wounds is better than just not being able to get the unit out. Because there were circumstances in the past where if you didn't have the CP to do the emergency disembarkation, you just couldn't do it, okay? So I actually quite like this change. I'm a big fan of it on the whole. Any questions so far, people? Thank you, Joshua, for gifting a membership. You're a legend. Thank you so much. Any questions so far? Unless you're a Dark Angel, says Chris. Well, yeah, this is what I'm saying. So we looked at the Dark... So I've known a lot of this before today. So when you look at the Dark Angel's Grim Resolve rule the other day, where, you know, people don't know about this, Dark Angels going to Grim Resolve 1 is a big deal, okay? That's actually quite important. So I think this is actually quite interesting when you then layer this in with Grim Resolve as a rule, because Grim Resolve makes it a lot more powerful than you think. I've said a few times that I think the manipulation of people's objective control, specifically around things like Battle Shock, is going to be important, right? And now you can see how important that actually might be, right? Love it. Sorry, I've got to do something very quickly, team. I'm waiting for a question. I am waiting for a question though. So has anyone got a question so far? We've done movement and we've done command. Any questions? Any issues? No? There's lots of mortals in 10th, but in some places quite sensibly distributed. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I hope Grey Light Interceptors still get into transport and rhinos. Yeah. Me too. There's gifted memberships banked, Tim. Turn yours on and stick in exclamation mark munch me. Is there gifted memberships banked? Have they not all been given out? I think all the ones that have come in today have actually been given out. Stick monkey, I think. Josh got gifted one. Chris gifted one. It didn't actually come in. We're running out of people to gift members to. This is the problem, team. Okay, this is the problem. Right. Shooting phase. Okay. Could you go over everything again I just got here? You have to start again, won't you? I'm here from getting timed out in Games Workshop's Twitch stream. Brilliant. What's your favourite type of bread? Just plain white. There's, to be honest, probably. Tiger loaf? I quite like tiger loaf. Shooting phase. Okay. So, into the shooting phase, people, right? It's not that different. There is some differences, but on the whole, the shooting phase is as it always has been. Okay, there's not a lot of changes in that. So you select the target before a unit shoots. You select the targets for all of its ranged weapons. At least one model in the target unit must be visible to the attacking model and within range of the weapon. Right? Models with more than one ranged weapon can shoot them at the same or different targets, but models cannot split attacks from the same weapon across more than one target. The same models in the same unit can shoot at the same or different targets. Okay. It's also got the lone operative ability on this page. Lone operative is very, very simple. If I have the lone operative ability and you are not within 12 inches of me, you cannot shoot at me. I cannot be selected as a target of that attack because of that particular rule. Okay, typically found on things like assassins and stuff like that, right? They're going to operate independently. They aren't going to join units. Okay. Battle shock ends at the start of your next command phase. I would assume battle shock ends... Hang on. It's a good question, Weeman. I like this. This is good. I would assume battle shock ends when you take your next battle shock test. If this step, you must take a battle shock test for each of your units on the battlefield that are below half strength. To do so, roll 2d6. Is passed. Otherwise, the unit is failed. And until the start of your next command phase, that unit's battlefield. Correct. Yes. Until the start of your next command phase, that unit is battle shocked. The reason why it is still important, though, is because you score your objectives at the end of the command phase. So after you've taken battle shock tests. Okay. Right, beautiful. So shooting phase, as we've said, is pretty similar to what it was before, but there is some nuanced changes, right? And that's mostly in big guns never tire, okay? So, making ranged attacks. When a model shoots his weapon, it makes a number of attacks equal to the weapon's attacks characteristic. Resolve all the attacks against one unit before resolving attacks against another unit, okay? Resolve all the attacks made with the same weapon profile before resolving attacks with any other weapon profiles. And if a weapon was in range of its target and was visible when selected, that weapon's attacks can always be made. So if your opponent starts picking models from the front and then goes, that flame is not in range now, it doesn't matter. At the point in which the target was selected, it was in range, so you'll always get to shoot, okay? While an enemy is within engagement range of one or more units from your army, you cannot select that enemy unit as the target of ranged weapons. Monsters and vehicles are exceptions to this because of big guns never tire. We'll talk about this in just a moment. And then it talks about stealth. We've seen the stealth ability on a number of data sheets, which is basically -1 to hit from attacks that are ranged attacks. Okay, so that's what stealth is. So big guns never tire. Here's a big change, right? I'm going to read through it properly. Big guns never tire is a change. Monster and vehicle units are eligible to shoot in their controlling player shooting phase, even while they are within engagement range of one or more enemy units. Ranged weapons equipped by monster and vehicle units can target one or more of the enemy units they are within engagement range of, even if other friendly units are also within engagement range of the same enemy unit. Each time a monster or vehicle model makes a ranged attack, if its unit was within engagement range of one or more enemy units when it selected its targets, unless that attack is made with a pistol, subtract 1 from that attack's hit roll. You can select an enemy monster or vehicle unit with an engagement range of one or more units from your army as a target of a ranged weapon. Each time a model from your army makes a ranged attack against such a target, unless that attack is made with a pistol, subtract 1 from the hit roll. Okay. Designer's note: a unit that is within engagement range of an enemy monster or vehicle unit is still not eligible to shoot, and so cannot make ranged attacks against that monster or enemy unit unless that unit is eligible to shoot even within engagement range or even while engagement range of enemy units, e.g. it itself is a monster or vehicle unit, or its models are equipped with pistols. Other units from your army that are eligible to shoot can, however, shoot the enemy monster. So, right, breaking this down quite a lot, right, it's kind of similar to a point to 9th edition. So monsters and vehicles can shoot at what they're in combat with, right, but they're -1 to hit, unless it's a pistol. Okay, so that's not really changed, okay? Right? The difference here is that my unit, so Joe's Carnifex charges my my Rhino, okay? My Devastators can now shoot his Carnifex even though it's in combat with my Rhino. I am -1 to hit, but I can shoot the monster. So no longer can you tag vehicles to protect your monster from being shot at. or protect your vehicle from being shot at. So your vehicle or monster can always be selected as the target of an attack, okay? Even if they're in combat, which is another nice change. We often saw people using piling in and consolidation to tag things to A, stop them from firing, but B, stop you from being able to be targeted. Big play with Angron, right? Turn on no fall back, tag a unit after you've murdered a unit, that unit can't fall back, I can't be shot at because I'm locked in combat. That now wouldn't be the case. You still wouldn't be able to fall back, but you would still now be able to shoot at Angron. And I actually quite like this change on the whole, especially considering they've supposedly massively increased the toughness of monsters and vehicles. Now you can still shoot at them if they're locked in combat with you. Okay? So that's cool.
Hi, Liam. Feeling bummed about 10th in light of yesterday's news. I have a Stormbird, 6 Leviathans, a Fire Raptor, a Storm Eagle, 3 Sicarans, a Contemptor, 3 Spartans, a Cerberus, and a Typhon board for my 50k PT.
I'm sorry for you, man. I am sorry for you. Thanks for the donor. You're a hero. I appreciate you, but I am sorry for you, man. Genuinely, absolutely sorry for you. It is what it is. All those grey names in chat, by the way. Don't forget to turn on gifted memberships because there are gifted memberships waiting for you. Okay. So I've seen some questions. You select one unit from your army to shoot, and then you select all of your weapons and all of the targets, and then you start rolling. Then you move on to your next unit. You don't have to select all of your units and what they're going to shoot at and then roll it out, okay? One unit at a time, select all the targets, roll. One unit at a time, select all the targets, roll. Keep going that way, okay? Makes sense? Cool. Okay. Beautiful. Right. We then go into actually making the attacks, okay? Which is obviously the same, pretty much the same process for melee as well, all right? So you have a hit roll. A hit is scored if the d6 result equals or exceeds the attack's ballistic skill characteristic, or weapon skill, obviously, if it's melee, okay? Critical hits, okay? So this is important. Lots of rules trigger on a critical hit. An unmodified hit roll of a 6, always successful, is a critical hit. A critical hit is an unmodified hit roll of a 6, and it's always successful, right? An unmodified hit roll of a 1 always fails, okay? A hit roll can never be modified by more than -1, right? Or +1. Okay, they can shoot out of combat though. The first point gives you shooting eligibility, so you follow the shooting phase rules. What do you mean they can shoot out of combat? Yeah, absolutely. Monsters and vehicle units are eligible to shoot in their controlling player shooting phase, even while they are within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units. Ranged weapons equipped by monster vehicle models can target 1 or more of the enemy units they are within engagement range of, even if other friendly units are in engagement range. Each time a monster vehicle makes a ranged attack, if its unit was within engagement range, yeah. So you can shoot with your monsters and vehicles. You can shoot out of combat now. You can shoot anything, but you're -1 to hit if you are in engagement range. You're correct. You are correct, Razor Wolf. Absolutely. So you roll your hits as normal, basically, right? You cannot modify a hit roll. A hit roll. This is important because Tau. A hit roll cannot never be modified by more than + or -1. Okay. Note that that's a hit roll, not the ballistic skill. Okay. So you can modify ballistic skill and a hit roll at the same time to get +2, but it's the only way you'll get +2, okay? Wound rolls, right? It's the same, okay? D6 result required. If your strength is twice the toughness, 2+. If your strength is greater than toughness, 3+. If your strength is equal, 4+. If your strength is less than, 5+. And if your strength is half, 6+, okay? It makes sense. Okay, no differences there. A critical wound is an unmodified wound roll of a 6, and it's always successful. Okay, so 6s are always successful, 1s are always fails. An unmodified wound of a 1 always fails. There you go. And guess what? A wound roll cannot be modified by - or +1. Okay, Razor, sorry, sounded like you were saying otherwise, boss. No, I probably did. I might have speed read it there. But you are 100% right. It's worth clarifying. Okay, we're learning all this together, right? We are learning all this together. Yes, vehicles and monsters can shoot out of combat, but if they are within engagement range, they will suffer a -1 penalty. So I can't tag a Lehman Russ now. I mean, in the past I couldn't anyway because turret weapons. I can't tag a Land Raider now and say you can only shoot at me. The Land Raider can shoot at what it wants. Okay, it can shoot at whatever it wants, but it will be -1 to hit. So a monster like a Riptide that is in combat with a Rhino can be eligible for greater good as is allowed to shoot and be guided. Yes, we man, 100%, absolutely. Right, okay. Allocate attack. If a model in the target unit has already lost any wounds or had any other attacks allocated to its phase, that attack must be allocated to that model, right? Now, this is something that people missed loads in 9th, but this actually isn't different, okay? If a model in the target unit has already lost any wounds, which we all know anyway, or had other attacks allocated to it this phase, the attack must be allocated to that model. Now we miss this. A lot of people miss this a lot in 9th edition. Oh, you're hitting me with big damage attacks? I'm going to take it on my Storm Shield guy. Oh, you're hitting me with low damage attacks? I'm just going to put it on a different guy. If it's the same phase and you've already started on a specific model, even if he hasn't taken any wounds, or she hasn't taken any wounds, or it, right? At that point, you must continue allocating to the same model that you originally allocated to, right? Okay, saving throw. The player then basically gets to make a saving throw. A 1 always fails, and a saving throw can never be improved by more than +1. Cool, happy with that, right? Invulnerable saves are never modified by AP, and the controlling player can choose to use either a model's invulnerable save or its save characteristic. So maybe, in some circumstances, you might want a model to die. Maybe you're playing Sisters of Battle, whereby if you lose a model, you actually get better abilities, you get stronger, you get good, you get better, right? So if that's the case, maybe you would be hit by an AP4 weapon, and you might choose to take it on your armor save instead of your vulnerable save, knowing a model would die, because it triggers another ability. A little bit janky, but meh, you know, it's there, it exists. You can do that, right? There's nothing on cap on modifying ballistic skill, weapon skill. Not that I've seen so far. No. Okay. Mortal wounds. We know what mortal wounds are. Each mortal wound inflicted on a unit causes one model in that unit to lose 1 wound. No saving throws can be made against mortal wounds. Mortal wounds inflicted by attacks always apply after any normal damage, even if that damage was saved. Okay? So inflict damage, a model loses a number of wounds equal to the attack's damage characteristic, and if a model is destroyed by an attack, any excess damage inflicted by that attack is lost. So it's the same as it currently is. And some of these aren't different, okay? Some of these are the same, but they are clarified here. They are, hey, people were janking or asking lots of questions. Let's just clarify it, right? Feel no pain is now a new universal special rule that we had back in 7th, and they've now brought it back. Feel no pain, X plus. Each of this model would lose a wound. Roll 1d6. If the result equals or exceeds X, that wound is not lost. It works the exact same way as Feel no pain has worked in 9th edition. It's just clarified as a universal special rule. And deadly demise is in there as well, which is exploding vehicles and stuff like that. And it gives you how many mortal wounds, right? So if you've got deadly demise X, the X denotes how many mortal wounds it will suffer. Within 6 inches, and it's all within 6 inches. Okay, when this model is destroyed, roll 1d6. On a 6, each unit within 6 inches suffers X mortal wounds. Pretty tasty, right? Hints and tips: fast rolling. So fast rolling is still a thing, and it gives you a whole big paragraph in here on fast rolling. I'm conscious you guys can't see it right now. Here's your big paragraph right here on fast rolling. Okay, I could read it all out to you, but the important thing to note here, and the reason why I was so sure that knights re-rolled all hit rolls and wound rolls of 1 rather than just 1 of each, is because the addition, and this is the same in 9th edition, is written as if you are rolling 1 attack at a time. Okay? There is fast rolling hints and tips in there. It basically states if you've got the same damage and the same AP and the same strength and the same ballistic skill, you can roll all the dice together in a pool. Okay? Right. Cool. And then we have a new thing, right, that we haven't really seen in 9th edition. We have a 2-page spread and some on weapon abilities, okay? And they give us a bunch of weapon abilities, and I think they've showcased most of these. There is, in fact, a total of 3 pages of weapon abilities, okay? So we have assault weapons. Now, remember when we advanced, it says you can't shoot weapons? Wow, if you have an assault weapons, you can be shot. Assault weapons can be shot even if the bearer's unit advanced. No -1. No negative penalty. So assault weapons, you used to be able to shoot if you advanced, but you suffered -1 to hit. You just get to shoot now if you advance. That's it, which is cool. Okay. Rapid fire X, increase the attacks by X when targeting units within half range. This is important because it is different to before, and the reason why it is different to before is because it used to be double the shots within half range. Now it's increased it by X. So some weapons will have 6 shots and rapid fire 2. Okay. Right. Cool. Ignores cover. Does exactly what it says on the tin. Weapons with ignores cover in their profile are known as ignore cover weapons. Each time an attack is made with such a weapon, the target cannot have the benefit of cover against the attack. Twin linked, as we all know, is reroll wound rolls on those weapons. Pistols. Weapons with the pistol can be shot if the bearer's unit is within engagement range of enemy units, but must target one or of those enemy units. Cannot be shot alongside any other non-pistol weapons except by a monster or vehicle. Okay. Torrent is Flamer. So Torrent is auto hits. Okay, so if you see a Torrent weapon with Torrent in its keywords, you will not see a ballistic skill profile. Lethal hits. Okay, and this is where I've been trying to get the language down for you people frequently, and I'm trying to get people like Joe to stop saying exploding sixes or auto winner sixes. Okay, weapons with lethal hits in their profile are known as lethal hits weapons. Each time an attack is made with such a weapon, a critical hit automatically wounds the target. And that's specifically important because there are other wounds out there that will tell you that critical hits happen on other dice rolls. Okay, so it's not when it's not when you roll a 6 to hit, it's when you roll a critical hit. Okay, have the benefits of cover change. We'll get to it, but yes, they have. Lance, right? Weapons with lance in their profile are known as lance weapons. Each time an attack is made with such a weapon, if the bearer made a charge move, add 1 to the attack's wound roll, which is cool. Okay, so anything with lance in the profile, +1 a wound on the charge, right? Quite tasty. Indirect fire hasn't really changed. Can target and make attacks against units that are not visible to the attacking unit. But if no models are visible in the target unit when it is selected, then when making an attack against that target with an indirect fire weapon, subtract 1 from the attack's hit roll, and the target has the benefit of cover against that attack. Okay, so indirect hasn't really changed massively. Precision, right? When targeting an attached unit, the attacking model's player can have the attack allocated to a character model in that unit visible to the bearer. So as long as I can see the character unit, I don't have to necessarily be in engagement range of him. I can, if I have precision, target the character rather than target the unit. What it doesn't let me do precision is pick out the flamer guy or the melter guy or the sergeant with the power fist. Okay, so all I can do is target a character instead of the bodyguard unit if I have precision and I can see the character. Okay, simple as that, right? Blast. So blast is different. Add 1 to the attack characteristics for every 5 models in the target unit, rounding down. Okay, can never be used against a target that is within engagement range of any units from the attacking model's army, including its own. Right, can never be used against a target that is within engagement range of any units from the attacking model's army. That's important. So you know how we said that my Devastators can shoot at your Carnifex that's in combat with my Rhino? That's true as long as those weapons don't have the blast keyword. If the weapon has the blast keyword, I then cannot target that Carnifex. Think about it narratively. It's too much of a risk shooting a blast weapon at that giant monster when I've got my guys nearby. Okay? Okay. Melter, all right? Melter X. Increase the damage by X when targeting units within half range. Cool. Where are we? Heavy. Add 1 to hit rolls if the bearer's unit remains stationary this turn. Wording is important. If the bearer's unit remains stationary, right? If the bearer's unit remains stationary. If the bearer's unit remains stationary, then you can get +1 a hit. If you keep your 1 heavy weapon stationary and everything else moves, you don't get that +1 a hit. Right? Right. Beautiful. Hazardous. Plasma. This is hazardous, right? So it's changed. Okay. So with precision, target the character, then do other troops without precision also hit the character as it has had its attacks allocated to it. No, I don't believe so. I don't believe so with precision. Precision in the profile known as precision weapons. Each time an attack is made with such a weapon, successfully wins an attached unit. If a character model is in that unit visible to the attacking model's player can choose to have the attack allocated to the character instead of following the normal attack sequence. So instead of following the normal attack sequence. No, because the normal attack sequence for characters attaching to units specifically states that you must allocate wounds to the bodyguard. Right? Okay. Hazardous. Weapons with hazardous in their profile are known as hazardous weapons. Each time a unit is... Right. So this is plasma. So in the old days, plasma had gets hot. Okay? And with gets hot, what happened was, if you rolled a 1 to hit, the model was destroyed. Okay? So you didn't hit, the model was destroyed. So if you hit, the model always lived. Okay, so here's a difference. Weapons with hazardous in their profile are known as hazardous weapons. Each time a unit is selected to shoot or fight, if 1 or more models attack with hazardous weapons, then after that unit has resolved all of its attacks, you must take 1 hazardous test for each hazardous weapon that was just used by rolling 1d6. For each roll of a 1, the test is failed and 1 model in that unit equipped with a hazardous weapon is destroyed, selected by the controlling player. unless that model is a character, monster, or vehicle, in which case it suffers 3 mortal wounds instead. Note that if you select a character model in an attached unit, the mortal wound suffers must be allocated to that model first, even if there is another model in that unit that had lost 1 or more wounds or has had attacks allocated to it this phase. Okay, this is very, very different. There's a couple of reasons. Things like multi-shot plasma weapons are better off here because they just take 1 test rather than taking a test essentially for every single hit roll that they roll. So they kind of benefit a little bit here. If they're a 3-shot plasma weapon or a D6 blast shot plasma weapon, they only take 1 test. The other reason why it's a bit worse though is because you take a test even if you've successfully hit your target. So if you fire a hazardous weapon, you take a hazardous test. Flat, full stop, that's it. Okay? So if you fire your 5 plasma guns from your Hell Blasters and every single one hits and every single one wounds and every single one kills an enemy model, you still take 5 hazardous tests. And for every one you roll, someone dies. More importantly as well, this is a hazardous test. It's not a hit roll. And why that's important and why that's different is because you can't re-roll it, because it's not re-roll hits. So one of the ways people used to get around it with big blocks of things like Hell Blasters was put a Gilliman nearby. I re-roll my hits. Cool. A very low chance of actually killing one. Okay, right, perfect. Devastating wounds. I've learned a lot about this already, right? A critical wound inflicts mortal wounds equal to the weapon's damage characteristic instead of any normal damage, okay? Sustained hits. Each critical hit scores X additional hits on the target. Weapons with sustained hits X in their profile are known as sustained hit weapons. Each time an attack is made with such a weapon, if a critical hit is rolled, the attack scores a number of additional hits on the target as denoted by X. There's some interesting things here that I'm not sure about. I don't know if you have ways of, like, I don't know if you have sustained hits on a weapon and you put sustained hits on a weapon, does it then become, so you've got sustained hits 1 and you add sustained hits 1 onto it, does it become sustained hits 2? I actually don't know that at the moment. That's something I'm going to ask for clarification on, okay? Extra attacks. Weapons with extra attacks in their profile are known as extra attack weapons. Each time the bearer of such a weapon fights, it can make attacks with the weapon in addition to the one it chooses to fight with. The number of attacks made with the extra attacks weapon cannot be modified by other rules. Okay, and anti's another one that we've already seen loads of as well, right? Weapons with anti-character X in their profile are known as anti-weapons, or anti-keyword X are known as anti-weapons. Each time an attack is made with such a weapon against a target with the keyword after the word anti, an unmodified wound roll of an X plus scores a critical wound. And that's why it's important, right? This is why the wording of things, rather than saying exploding 6s, it's exploding critical hits. Rather than saying auto wound on 6s, it's auto wound on critical hits. The wording's important here. So if you have anti-character 4+, right, and you roll a 4+ against a character, it then triggers a critical wound. That's important if that weapon also has devastating wounds, because a critical wound inflicts mortal wounds equal to the weapon's damage characteristic if it's also got devastating wounds. Okay? Right. Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. We've then got the charge phase, okay? And again, charging, they've done a lot of work here where they have removed some of the jank that has existed in previous editions, okay? So, there is changes to... the way you pile in, the way you charge, the way you consolidate, right? Okay, so charging with a unit, right? You select a charge unit which is eligible. Okay, a unit is eligible to charge if it's within 12 of one or more enemy units at the start of your charge phase, unless any of the following apply. It advanced or fell back. It is within engagement range. It's an aircraft unit. Okay, right. Charging with a unit. You then, once you've selected an eligible unit to declare a charge, you must select one or more enemy units within 12 inches of this target of that charge. The targets of that charge do not need to be visible to the charging unit. And I kind of wanted to have the visibility thing from boarding actions, sort of, just because of narrative, but I get it, right? You then make a charge roll for the charging unit by rolling 2d6. The result is the maximum number of inches each model in that unit can be moved. If a charge move is possible, for a charge move to be possible, the charge roll must be sufficient to enable the charging unit to end that move within engagement range of every unit that you selected as a target of the charge, without moving within engagement range of any other enemy unit that was not selected as a target of the charge, and remaining in unit coherency. So one of the things I've skipped over, actually, I think already, have I skipped over it or have I not skipped over it in the movement phase, is coherency, because some people will have missed this, but coherency has in fact changed ever so slightly. Okay, maybe I haven't missed over. Oh no, just escape advanced moves. I haven't actually skipped coherency already, have I? Or is it even before the battle round? Yeah, so coherency has changed. It is before the battle round, okay? So this is my fault. Unit coherency, right back in the core concepts, has in fact changed. Very, very subtle change, very, very simple. It used to be that if you were 1 to 5 models, you had to be within 2 inches of 1 or more models from your unit. And if you were 6 models or above, you had to be within 2 inches of 2 or more models and above. Now coherency has changed. You only have to be within 2 inches of 2 or more models or above if you're 7 plus models in the unit, which means if you take a unit of 6 Blade Guard, their maximum unit size, or 6 Aggressors, you only have to be within 2 inches of 1 or more model, right? And as we probably already know, engagement range is 1 inch horizontally and 5 inches vertically, okay? That's what engagement range is. I think we know that anyway. Okay, right. So yeah, so engagement range has changed ever so slightly. So you roll 2d6. You make sure you satisfy those criteria. All right. If you cannot satisfy all of those conditions above, the charge fails, and the models in the charging unit don't, and in their charging unit move this phase. Hang on. And no models in the charging unit move this phase, right? Otherwise, the charge is successful, and the models in the charging unit make a charge move. Each model move a distance in inches. Move each model a distance in inches up to the result of the charge roll. When doing so, each model in the charging unit must end its charge move closer to one or of the units selected as the target of its charge. If you can also... Right, okay. Here's a change, right? If you can also move a charging model so it ends its charge move in base-to-base contact with one or more enemy models while still enabling the charging unit to end its move, satisfying all the conditions above, you must do so. The controlling player chooses the order in which to move their models. So if you can end in base-to-base, you must do so, okay? There's some clarifications with charging over terrain and charging flying models. Basically says the same thing. Flying models, you must measure the distance, right? Flying models can move over other models when they make a charge move. Start and end the charge model terrain feature measure distance, move through the air when they make the charge move. So you measure the angle rather than the horizontal, okay? Right, perfect. Charging over terrain, if it's 2 inches or less, you just basically ignore it. If it's more than that, you need to measure the vertical distance as well, right? Okay, beautiful. Fight phase. So, fight phases also changed slightly. So you remember in 9th edition we had fights first and super fights first and fights last and super fights last and fights normal and all that nonsense. And it was such a fucking mess that they actually had to release essentially an FAQ article to tell you how it works, right? So tell you how it works. Fight phase, slightly different. You have fights first, you have fights normal. That's it. Okay, that's all you get, right? In both steps of the fight phase, players alternate. So this is important, right? Players alternate selecting eligible units from the army one at a time, starting with the player whose turn is not taking place and fighting with them. Note that the player cannot pass or opt not to fight when they have one or more eligible units that they could fight. They must select one of them to fight. In both steps, the unit is eligible to fight if either or both of the following conditions apply. It is within engagement range of one or more enemy units. It made a charge move this turn. No unit can fight more than once in the fight phase in each step. If all other players eligible units that can fight during that step have fought, the opposing player can then fight with all of the remaining eligible units that can fight during the step that step one at a time. Okay. Once neither player has any eligible units to fight during the current step, you progress to the next step. Once all eligible units fought from every step, the fight phase ends. The player's turn then ends. Unless the battle ends, the next player's turn begins. Note that after an enemy unit has fought and finished its consolidation move, it might be that previously ineligible units are now eligible. Those units can then be selected to fight during the remaining combat step, okay? So you've got 2 steps in the fight phase now, right? You've got fights first step and remaining combats. That's your 2 steps. Okay, that's it. That's all you've got. Fights first, remaining combats. Right? Okay. So, in this step, all eligible units with the fights first ability fight first. Okay. Remember that this will include a unit that made a charge move this turn and that have a charge bonus. The charge bonus is on the charge phase page, on page, for me at least, on page 29. And if you look at the select eligible unit, select targets part on the left-hand side at the bottom, it says charge bonus. Each time a unit makes a charge move until the end of that turn, that unit has the fights first ability. Okay? So, cool. Units with this ability are eligible to fight to do so in the fight's first step, provided every model in that unit has this ability. Okay? So what that means is, if I charge you, right? I have my unit of Space Marines, and Joe has his unit of Tyranids, and I charge my Space Marines into his Tyranids. I gain fights first for my whole unit because I charged, and he doesn't have fights first. So in the fights first step, we go to all eligible units that have fights first, my Space Marines, and they get to make their attacks. Once they've made their attacks, has any other unit on the battlefield got the fights first ability that's currently engaged in combat? No. We then move on to remaining combats. Right? And in the remaining combat step, because it's my turn, Joe selects first, okay? In this step, all remaining eligible units fight. This includes any units with the fight's first ability that were not eligible to fight at the start of the fight phase, but have since become eligible to fight, okay? So, that's why is that important? I'll tell you why that's important. They showed the Lion's datasheet yesterday. Okay, the Lion has fights first on his profile as a built-in ability. So if my same unit of Space Marines charge the Lion, I have fights first because I charged. He has fights first because it's on his datasheet. In the fights first step, both units who are engaged in combat have fights first. However, it's my turn. And at the beginning, it says it starts with a player whose turn is not taking place. So if you charge a fights first unit, they will get to swing first. Okay? But it's also a take it in turns thing. So if you charge 3 fights first units and you then gain fights first, there's 6 fight first units. He picks the first unit to swing who fights first. So let's say, for example, I have 3 units of Space Marines and my opponent has 3 units that also have fights first. Let's have a guess. Banshees. Banshees might have it, right? As a guess, okay? So I charge my 3 units into his 3 units that have got fights first. Okay? It's his turn. He'll pick a unit for fight first. And he'll swing first. But then I pick a unit. But then he picks a unit. But then I pick a unit. Then he picks a unit. Then I pick a unit. And then the fight's first step ends and we move into remaining combats. Okay? And that's how it works. Right? That's how that works. Cool. Right. Trajan in his moment shackle, giving him and his unit fights first. Quite dirty. Very dirty. You charge Trajan in his unit and he turns that ability on. He fights first. Right? Because I charged you, so it's my turn. He then fights first. Okay? Interesting, right? Super cool. But it's just fights first. It's just remaining fights. Right? I'm drinking every time you say fights first. My liver can only take so much. But there you go. You've just got 2 steps. There's no fights last. There's no super fights last. There's no super fights first. It's just as simple as that. This is a way, I suspect, if we think about units like Banshees and stuff like that, this is a way they can kind of bring initiative into 10th edition without actually having to bring initiative into 10th edition, because certain units are so fast or have such martial prowess that even if you charge them, they will get to swing first narratively, because they're just that quick, they're that agile, they're that aware, right? I actually really like this as a way of doing the fight phase. I think this is really elegant, it's really neat. I really approve. I would have personally preferred to see initiative back, but I understand that a lot of people don't like initiative, okay? Lion has it. I charge the Lion fights first. I got that right, 100%. Yeah, absolutely, that's how it works, okay? Right, so pile in, make melee attacks, select targets, select weapons, select targets, make attacks, okay? So you've got the pile in step, the make melee attacks, the consolidate step, right? Piling in. You can pile in up to 3 inches. Every model that moves must end close to the closest enemy model and in base-to-base contact with an enemy model if possible. The unit must end in unit coherency and within engagement range of at least 1 enemy unit, or no models can pile in. Okay? So, there's none of this. I've charged, right? And then I charged 2 units in. Unit number 1 murders my opponent. I charge 2 units of Berserkers in. My first unit of Berserkers picks up the enemy unit and destroys it entirely, right? The second unit that then charges in then can pile in 3 and move 3. That's gone. It's all that jank is fucked off as well. Okay, cool. So pile in. That is a big difference to what currently exists, right? It's you just remove a lot of janky movement tricks to just gain extra movement that probably shouldn't have been there, right? Right. So yeah, every model that moves must end close to the closest enemy model, and in base-to-base contact with an enemy model if possible. That unit must end in coherency and within engagement range of at least 1 enemy unit, or no models can pile in. Okay, then you make attacks. This isn't too different, right? A model can fight if it's within engagement range of an enemy unit. Engagement range has changed slightly, okay? It's a slightly shorter range now. It's not as big as it was before. So make sure you guys are okay with engagement range. But engagement range has changed. A model can fight if it is in base-to-base contact with another model from its own unit that is in itself within base-to-base of an enemy unit, right? So you have to be within an engagement range, which is within 1 inch horizontally or 5 vertically. Or you have to be within base-to-base of a model within base-to-base. So there's no more of this within half an inch of a model within half an inch, all that kind of stuff, right? No, that's all gone. That's all fucked off, okay, which is good. So I prefer that as well. Select targets, pick your eligible targets. If there are no eligible targets, right, then the unit cannot make melee attacks this phase, but it can still consolidate. Caveat, people, okay, caveat, right? Making attacks is pretty simple as well, okay? Select targets for all the attacks before they are resolved. Attacking model must either be within engagement range of an enemy unit to target it, or in base-to-base contact with another model in its unit that is itself in base-to-base contact with an enemy unit. All right, pretty obvious. Cool. Okay, beautiful. All right, and then you go into the make attack stage. Resolve all attacks against one unit before moving on to the next. Resolve all attacks with the same weapon profile before resolving any made with a different weapon profile. All attacks declared against a target unit are resolved, even if no models in that unit remain within engagement range. It's the same as shooting, basically. Okay, that's no different. And then we have consolidate, right? So consolidating move. You consolidate move up to 3 inches. Okay, every model that moves must end closer to the closest enemy model and in base-to-base contact with an enemy model if possible. The unit must end in unit coherency and within engagement range of at least one enemy unit if possible. If the above is not possible, each model can move towards the closest objective marker, but this must result in the unit being within range of it and in unit coherency. Okay, if the above is also not possible, no models can consolidate. So if you can end in engagement range and in unit coherency, you can consolidate up to 3, and if you can make base, you must make base. But if you can't do that because there's no enemy models in range, you can still consolidate 3 inches if you can end within range of an objective marker, but be in coherency. And if you can't do either of those things, if both of those are impossible, you just flat can't consolidate. I like the extra layer there where you can step onto an objective. I think that's really nice. Okay, so big changes, right? You have to be able to end in engagement range, and you have to be able to stay in coherency to be able to pile in. And if you can't do that, then you can't pile in. So there's no piling in if there's no enemies to be in engagement range of. Okay, you then, when you consolidate, have to be within engagement range of enemy models when you pile in, or within range of an objective marker, or you just flat can't pile in. In all of the steps, including the charge phase, if you can make base to base, you must make base to base. Okay, engagement range is in self-change. It's within 1 inch of enemy models, or in base to base with a model in base to base. A lot simpler, a lot easier to measure. There's a lot less jank there about arguing over who's in engagement range and who's not. Right, you're either within 1 inch or you're in base to base and model within a base to base. As simple as that. And then a big change to the fight phase where you've just got fights first and essentially fights normal. Right, remaining combats. I'm a little bit, as a World Eaters player, this was an interesting read through for me personally, because I have lost a lot of my tricks as World Eaters. For example, I have lost a lot of the ability to to jank movement, but I'm also aware of the fact that it is janking movement when I would make a charge roll knowing that Unit A probably will wipe out the target and Unit B and C will just get free movement and I can position myself, right? So it's a big change, okay? It's a big change. And I think for me personally, the fights first change, especially with the fact that that it's always the opposing player who gets to go first, is, like I said, a really elegant way of introducing what used to be essentially initiative without actually having to bring initiative back. Again, I was a big fan of initiative. I like it. I'm a big fan of it. It makes you really think about who you're going to want to charge or how you're going to want to deal with certain characters. It really allows them to put across a narrative of a Banshee being as lightning fast and acrobatic as a Banshee is, or the Lion having the martial prowess that the Lion has. For me personally, I actually am all for this. You know, Pinky says it says engagement range if possible. Yeah. So it does say engagement range if possible. If it's not possible, you look at the objective markers, and if neither of those are possible, you can't move. Read the whole thing, Pinky, okay? Just to be clear, right? You have to go with engagement range if possible. If you can't do that, you can go on an objective marker. If you can't do either, you can't move at all. Okay? Beautiful. Right. Beautiful. So then we go on to data sheets. Data sheets, we've done them to death recently. Okay, we know all about data sheets, so that's not necessarily new to us. We've then got some specific universal special rules called deployment abilities: deep strike, infiltrators, leader, and scouts. Okay, right. Deep strike unit can be set up in reserves instead of on the battlefield. It can be set up reinforcement step more than 9 inches horizontally away from all enemy models. They've added that horizontal word, which I'm a big fan of. Okay, scouts. Scouts X. Unit can make a normal move of up to X before the first turn begins. Here's an interesting point, right? If embarked in a dedicated transport, that dedicated transport can make this move instead. So if you've got scout move and you put it in a rhino, which is the dedicated transport keyword, guess what? It can then make that same scout move. Like that, right? Must end this move more than 9 inches horizontally away from enemy model. So you can't scout within 9 inches, which makes sense. Infiltrators during deployment. If every model in the unit has this ability, when you set it up, it can be set up anywhere on the battlefield more than 9 inches horizontally away from the enemy deployment zone and enemy units. Again, 9 inches horizontally. They're clarifying horizontal the whole time. Okay, that's cool. And then the leader keyword. Some character units have the leader listed on their data sheets, right? Such characters are known as leaders, and the units they lead, known as their bodyguard units, are listed on their data sheet. During the declare battle formation step, for each leader in your army, if your army also includes one or more of that leader's bodyguard units, then you can select one of those bodyguard units. You don't have to. The leader will then attach that bodyguard unit for the duration of the battle and is said to be leading that unit. Each bodyguard unit can only have one leader attached to it, unless specifically stated, like Space Marine Lieutenants. While a bodyguard unit contains a leader, it is known as an attached unit, and, with the exception of rules that are triggered when units are destroyed, it is treated as a single unit for all rules purposes. Each time an attack targets an attached unit, until the attacking unit has resolved all of its attacks, you must use the toughness characteristic of the bodyguard models in that unit, even if a leader in that unit has a different toughness characteristic. Each time an attack successfully wounds an attached unit, that attack cannot be allocated to a character model in that unit, even if that character model has lost one or more wounds or has already had attacks allocated to it this phase. As soon as the last bodyguard model in their attached unit has been destroyed, any attacks made against that unit that have not yet been allocated can then be allocated to character models in that unit, right? This answers a question that came up earlier. So, if you attack me with a precision unit, let's assume something like a sniper rifle has a precision unit, and you therefore force me to allocate wounds on my leader, that doesn't then mean that I allocate every other wound to my leader simply because he's already taken damage and already had attacks allocated to him because of the leader special ability. So I could have read the bullet points. I wanted to read it in whole. You specifically have to take everything on the bodyguard. Basically, the only time you don't take things on bodyguard is precision and hazardous. Okay? That's basically it, right? Beautiful. Okay. So stratagems. There's a lot more stratagems than there used to be now. Okay, so there is 11 key stratagems in the main rulebook now. They're all pretty good, okay? And they're color coordinated for you beautiful people. So if they're green, they can be used in either player's turn. If they're blue, they can be used in your own turn. And if they're red, they can be used in the opponent's turn, okay? That's really nice. I really like it. And if you have noticed on the faction previews, they've also been different colors. They follow the same format. I have missed some stuff, by the way. I don't know if I got Josh Palmer's gifted membership. Thank you, man. You're a hero. Tyler, thank you for the 5. If a unit is under half strength past battle shock, does it need to keep making the test every turn? Yes, it does, because it's still classified as being below half strength. Absolutely. Nick, thank you for the 2. No more hiding Angron by chain charging. Boo. I mean, I don't think he needs it, to be fair. But yeah, no more doing that. Okay, right. So you have stratagem categories: battle tactics, epic deeds, stratagem ploy, and war gear. Battle tactic, bolster a unit's efficiency in battle. Epic deeds are used by individual models or units to perform mighty feats of heroism. Strategic ploys are used to gain a new strategic insight, granting them a small but valuable window of opportunity. And war gear is based on war gear. Okay, so you have the command reroll that hasn't gone away, but you know there's fewer rerolls in 10th edition. But the command reroll is still here. In any phase, just after you've made a hit roll, a wound roll, a damage roll, a saving throw, an advanced roll, a charge roll, a desperate escape test, a hazarded test, or just after you have rolled the dice to determine the number of attacks made with a weapon for an attack, model, or unit from your army. And you can re-roll the test, roll, or saving throw. That's important because desperate breakout and hazardous is in there. And as far as I'm aware, this is the only way you get to re-roll those rolls, and you can only do it for one particular dice roll. Big deal, okay? Big deal. Counter-offensive, right? Fight phase just after an enemy unit has fought. One unit from your army that is within engagement range of one or more enemy units. That unit that has not already been selected to fight this phase, your unit fights next. 2 CP, right? Fight phase just after an enemy unit has fought, which means you can do this in either the fight's first step, or you can do it in the fight normal step, which means this is as strong as it was before. It's 2 CP, it's basically the same. 1 CP for Epic Challenge, a brand new stratagem in 10th edition. Okay. Fight phase, when a character unit from your army that is within engagement range of one or more attached units is selected to fight. One character model from your unit is the target of this stratagem, and until the end of the phase, all melee attacks made by that model have the precision ability. Okay. So the Lion can give precision to his weapons. Angron can give precision to his weapons for 1 CP. He just has to be in engagement range of an attached unit, right? Which is pretty tasty. He then gets precision. So your epic characters can go in and character hunt. It's almost like the old challenge rule. I kind of love it, okay? Insane Bravery isn't too different. It's 1 CP. One battle shocked unit of in the battle shock step of your command phase, just after you have failed a battle shock test, taking 3 in your army. This unit can then this unit from your army target the unit from your army that the battle shock test was taken on. Okay, Jesus, even though you cannot normally target battle shock units or stratagems, the effect, your unit is treated as having passed that battle shock instead and is not battle shocked as a result. Okay, Epic D stratagem doesn't say it's 1 use per battle and it's only 1 CP. So this is something that I can see being used quite a lot. So I fail a battle shock for a unit on an objective and my objective control is going to go to 0. I spend 1 CP, I pass that battle shock test, my objective control stays. I am the only unit on the objective, therefore I now hold the objective. Okay? I feel like that is a big strat that people will be using a lot and saving CP for. Okay? I'm seeing some questions in here about keywords actually, which is quite interesting. Data sheets have a list of keywords separated into faction keywords and other keywords. The former are used for when deciding which models to include in your army, but otherwise both sets of keywords are functionally the same. It doesn't say about many of special abilities and wrong. Some abilities are bestowed by either war gear, weapons, auras, psychic weapons and abilities. Some weapons and abilities that can only be used by psychics. Such weapons and abilities are triggered with the word psychic if a psychic weapon or ability causes you to suffer 1 or more wounds. Each of those wounds is considered to have been inflicted by a psychic attack. Wargear options or a random character that leads you to. It doesn't tell you about if you share keywords when you join units, which is interesting. Okay. But functionally, if a leader joins a unit, he becomes one with the unit, right? Functionally. So where's that leader ability gone? Let's go and find that again. During the declare battle formation step, for each leader in your army, if your army also includes 1 or more of that leader's bodyguard units, you can select one of those bodyguard units. The leader will then attach that bodyguard unit for the duration of the battle and is said to be leading that unit. Each bodyguard unit can only have 1 leader attached to it. While a bodyguard unit contains a leader, it is known as an attached unit, and with the exception of rules that are triggered when units are destroyed, it is treated as a single unit for all rules purposes. So I would assume it confers the same keyword. Okay. Now, we have seen the grenade keyword on some data sheets so far in the previews, and there is a 1 CP grenade stratagem. You'll notice that there has been no grenade war gear options on the models data sheets. They've just had pistols and bolt guns, etc., but there's been no grenades. It's because it's a 1 CP stratagem. It happens in your shooting phase, and you target 1 grenade unit from your army that is not within engagement range of any enemy units and has not been selected to shoot this phase. Select 1 enemy unit that was not within engagement range of any units from your army and is within 8 inches of and visible to your grenade unit. Roll 6d6, and for each 4+, it suffers a mortal wound. There you go, that's your grenades. It's as simple as that, 1 CP. Tank shock is another new one, right? 1 CP, when your charge phase, target 1 vehicle from your army, effect. Until the end of the phase, after your unit ends a charge move, select 1 enemy unit within engagement range of it, then select 1 melee weapon your unit is equipped with. Roll a number of d6 equal to that weapon's strength characteristic. If that strength characteristic is greater than that enemy unit's toughness characteristic, roll 2 additional d6. For each 5+, the enemy unit suffers a mortal wound to a maximum of 6 mortal wounds. Right? That's a cool strat, because if you look at most of the vehicle weapons that we've seen so far for tanks, they're all kind of AP 0-1 damage, right? This one looks quite good for tank shot. 1 CP You drive your Land Raider into someone, you could do some mortal wounds. Tank Shock's really cool for a single CP. I'm a big fan. Rapid Ingress for 1 CP, another new stratagem, right? When at the end of your opponent's movement phase, target 1 unit from your army that is in reserves. Effect, your unit can arrive on the battlefield as it was the reinforcement step of your movement phase. You deep strike in their reinforcement step, okay? And the restrictions, you cannot use this stratagem to enable a unit to arrive on the battlefield during a battle round in which it would not normally be able to do so. For example, battle round 1, okay? Fire Overwatch is a stratagem we've had before for 1 CP, but it has changed. Fire Overwatch is different because when used to be when you were selected as the target of a charge. Right now, your opponent's movement or charge phase, just after an enemy unit has set up, or when an enemy unit starts or ends a normal move, advance, fallback, or charge move. Okay, the important part there for me is set up as well. So basically, every army's got Auspex scan for 1 CP nowadays, okay? Target 1 unit from your army that is within 24 inches of that enemy unit and would be eligible to shoot if it was shooting phase. Effect, you can shoot as if it was shooting phase, right? Restrictions, until the end of the phase, you hit on 6s. Cool. Right, go to ground is another 1 CP. Right, your opponent's shooting phase, you start an enemy unit selects its targets. Your infantry unit can then go to ground. You pick an infantry unit. You gain a 6+ invulnerable save and get the benefit of cover. Smoke screen's now 1 CP. Everyone gets it rather than it being a multiple data sheets. It's just a multiple codexes. It's a stratagem. It's now just a generic stratagem like it should have always been. Opponent's shooting phase, you start units. If you've got a smoke unit, you gain the benefit of cover and stealth. We already know that stealth is -1 to your hit roll, okay, against ranged attacks. Tank Shock and Walk is still okay. Yeah, I think so. Just a vehicle unit from your army. As long as it's got the vehicle keyword, you are good. Heroic Intervention is now 2 CP, right? But get this. Your opponent's charge phase, just after the enemy unit ends a charge move, 1 unit from your army that is within 6 inches of that enemy unit and would be eligible to declare a charge against that enemy unit if it were your charge phase. Your unit now declares a charge that targets only that enemy unit, and you resolve that charge as if it were your charge phase. And I got super fucking excited there, right? You can only select a vehicle unit from your army if it is a walker. Note that even though this charge is successful, your unit does not receive the charge bonus this turn. That made me super sad, but it also makes sense. So the thing here is walkers, other vehicles can't. Walkers, monsters, groups of infantry, blade guards, sword brethren, you know, assault terminators for 2 CP now can all heroically intervene. Tasty, right? Tasty. Strategic reserves. Okay, if you're a strike force, 500 points can go to strategic reserves. Simple as that, right? 25% of your army. Okay, you can't put fortifications. When you arrive from strategic reserves, you can arrive in the reinforcement step of your movement phase from the 2nd battle round onwards. So it specifically states from the 2nd battle round onwards here. Now, in the past, it would be that the match play rules would state 2nd battle round onwards and must come on by the end of turn 3. Now, just in here, it says 2nd battle round onwards. Those not on the battlefield at the end of the battle counts destroyed. I now believe you can bring in strategic reserves even in match play in turns 4 and 5. Which I'm really happy about, right? Setting up strategic reserves units. Set up wholly within 6 inches of any battlefield during the 2nd battle round, wholly within 6 inches of any battlefield edge not in enemy deployment zone. From the 3rd battle round onwards, set up wholly within 6 inches of any battlefield edge. Cannot be set up within 9 inches of enemy model. Cool. Like it, simple. Okay, we then go into train features, right? Benefit of cover. People have asked about what the benefit of cover is. Here it is. Benefit of cover. Add 1 to saving throws against ranged attacks. Does not apply to models with a save characteristic of 3 or better. Does not apply to models with a save characteristic of 3+ or better against attacks with AP of 0. Multiple instances are not cumulative. Okay. It gives you a bunch of stuff for terrain, woods, ruins, footprint, the movement between them, etc., etc. It's interesting. It's cool. You guys can read through that stuff in your own time. Gives you an example of battlefield. And then we have an aircraft. Right. Here's another big change. So deep strike turn 1 is what you're saying. No, Pip. No deep strike turn 1. Okay. No deep strike turn 1 unless you've got a rule that specifically says you can. Okay. Some models have the aircraft keyword. The following rules describe how such models operate on the battlefield. There is a change in here. Okay. When you are instructed to declare battle formations, aircraft models must start the battle in reserves instead of being set up on the battlefield. Okay. Once the battle has started, aircraft models are then treated as strategic reserves. For all rules purposes, only units that are themselves placed into reserves can start the battle embarked within aircraft transport models that are in reserves. All right. Some aircraft models have the hover keyword listed. Okay. In their abilities, when you are instructed to declare battle formations, before doing anything else, you must first declare which modes from your army with this ability or which model from your army with this ability will be in hover mode. Okay. If a model is in hover mode, then until the end of the battle, its move characteristic is changed to 20 inches, it loses the aircraft keyword, and it loses all associated rules for being an aircraft model. Models in hover mode do not start the battle in strategic reserves, but you can choose to place them into strategic reserves following the normal rules if you wish. Okay. Aircraft models can only make normal move, they can't fall back and advance. Can do so even within the engagement range of any models. Aircraft models move straight forward at least 20 inches and then can make 90-degree pivot. So that's changed, right? Aircraft that cross the edge of the battlefield or that cannot make their minimum move are placed into strategic reserve, right? Critical point with ruins. What do you mean critical point with ruins? We're on about escapade. We're on about. Talk to me, Goose. Talk to me. What's this critical? Thank you, Dan Skippy, for gifting membership. You're a hero. Rick Jagger, thank you for the 5. Listening while at work. If a unit is led by a psyker, is the whole unit then a psyker? Will anti-psyker 2+ weapons wound are 2+ against the whole unit? I assume so, because the unit has the keyword in it, I'm afraid. I think that is probably the case. So, yeah. So, I mean, if you have... What I found interesting with this, and this is something that I have experienced directly, but what I found interesting with this is, if you have hover, you have to choose before the game starts whether you are in hover or supersonic, essentially, and you cannot change during. So no longer can you zoom your aircraft around for 3 turns and then come down into hover. You're either in supersonic or you're in hover, right? Okay, there's some more stuff about aircrafts moving and charging and the fact that you can only fly things. Typical aircraft things, right? Here's a really interesting one that people seem to not be comfortable with right now, interestingly. I've spoken to a few people about this, obviously. This piece right here, right? The muster your army step in the main rulebook, okay? Let's go through this. Reread the last sentence of visibility in ruins, says Escape. Sorry, chat, we are doing this live. Visibility, the last sentence. Models can see into this terrain feature normally, and models that are wholly within this terrain feature can see out of it normally. Okay. Models cannot see over or through this terrain feature, i.e. a unit outside this terrain feature cannot draw a line of sight to a target on the other side, even if it would be possible to draw a line of sight through to that target. Aircraft and towering models are exceptions to this. Visibility to and from such models is determined normally, even if this terrain feature is wholly in between them and the observing model. Models can see into this terrain feature normally, and models that are wholly within this terrain feature can see out of it normally. It's no different though, is it? Really? Is that different? I think it's that different. Right, so the muster your army step, right? The muster your army step. Legio Power, not a big fan of that, to be honest. I think it's all about for aircraft. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure about that one. Because, like, Helldrakes have typically had hover, for example. I don't know how I feel about that one. I'm not sure about that one as a rule. That's one of the few parts of this where I'm like, okay. So, select battle size is number 1. 2,000 points. All right, strike force. Okay. Start your army roster. I like this as well, right? The details of your army roster must be recorded on an army roster. This can be written on a piece of paper or recorded using the Warhammer 40,000 app, okay? Unless it's Legends, because they don't put Legends on the app. Players must show their finished army roster to their opponent before the battle commences. You can download blank army roster sheets from warhammercommunity.com, okay? Select army faction. Note on your roster 1 faction keyword to be your army faction. Space Marines, Imperial Guard, Eldar, whatever it might be. Select detachment rules. Note on your army roster 1 set of detachment rules for your army. Some detachment rules list units that you either must include or cannot include in your army. You must follow all such rules when building your army. So, say I've gone Space Marines, I'm going Gladiator Strike Force. Select units. Select all the units you want to include in your army. Your army must include at least 1 character unit. Each time you include a unit in your army, it can take any upgrade, enhancement, or options it has access to. Note on your army roster the number of models in the unit, any weapons, war gear, upgrades, and any enhancements it has, and its points value. Subtract the points value from the total permitted for your battle size. You can only include a unit in your army if The unit has the faction keyword you chose for your army in step 3. You have enough points remaining, and your army does not already contain 3 units with the same datasheet name as that unit, or 6 units with the same datasheet name as the unit if it is battle line or dedicated transport. Okay. Only characters can be given enhancements, and your army cannot include more than 3 enhancements in total. No unit can have more than 1 enhancement, and no unit can have more than 1 enhancement, and each enhancement included in your army must be unique. Epic heroes cannot be given any enhancements, and your army cannot include the same epic hero more than once. So a lot of people ask me this: can I have Saint Celestine and Morvin Val in the same army? The answer is 100% yes, you can. You absolutely can. Absolutely can, right? Select a warlord, select 1 character to be a warlord. It's a fundamental difference. What you'll notice is there is no, you must take 2 characters and 3 troops choices. There is no, you must take a minimum of either 3 fast attack. There's no restrictions on list building right now, okay? There's no restrictions on list building now. Now, there is simply the ability to put in whatever you want. So if your army hits 2,000 points and you've got 1 character, 1 troop choice, 1 heavy choice, 1 fast attack choice, 1 elite choice, and 1 dedicated transport choice, that's perfectly fine. More importantly, there is no such thing as fast attack or elites or heavy support anymore. They're all gone. Unit designations as we previously knew it have all gone now, okay? So in the building list step, you just build your lists. Put whatever you want in. As long as you fulfill the criteria that you've got the right faction and you have enough points to buy the unit, you put whatever you want in. Okay, I really, 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 really like that. The only requirement is 1 character. Okay, this has also lifted the restriction off of 2 flyers and 2,000 points and stuff like that. Okay, the only model, the only problem is the only requirement, sorry, is 1 character. Okay, we then go into missions. I'm not going to bore you too much with missions right now. Because there's other things to talk about later, but we're going to missions. And we talk about objective markers, right? They're pretty similar, okay? They tell you about objective markers. A model is the range of objective marker is within 3 inches horizontally and 5 inches vertically, which is true. You count up all objective control, that's fine. A objective marker is controlled by the player with the highest objective control over it, that's fine. Here's the big thing. Okay? Models cannot end a move on top of an objective marker, which is interesting, right? Models cannot end a move in range of an objective marker. Interesting, okay? And that's that, right? It goes into the only war section for missions, but there'll be more coming. We've seen that they've already got a deck. There's then a combat patrol section, which gives you combat patrol missions, as if you're playing combat patrol, and they've said that they're going to be releasing individual rules for every faction for their combat patrol as well, which is quite nice. And we then move into some narrative stuff before we open into, eventually, when I get there in a minute, this is just more narrative stuff, lots more narrative stuff, and then we get to Crusade rules. Crusade rules, I haven't actually, I'll be honest with you people, I haven't read through them, and I'm not going to read through them now, right? Crusade looks slightly simpler, off the top of my head, but not massively so, okay? There's lots of things you can print out. What we are not seeing is individual Crusade rules for each army, which is quite nice. Okay, you've got Battle Scars, you've got mustering your Crusade army, and then we've got the Tyrannic War narrative section, which is in here as well. Obviously, because the Leviathan box set is Space Marines versus Tyranids, it's the next Tyrannic War. So you have the Tyrannic War set with even more. Again, you can download these rule books, right? That is a thick daddy of a rule book. Okay, but that's your core rules for 10th edition covered. What's your thoughts? They showed Death Guard Demon Prince on stream. 1 norm, 1 with wings. Does that mean I can take 6? Yes. If that's true, what stream do they show on Pip? Is it the Warhammer stream itself? If it's true, and they've shown you that there is a single 1 with wings and a single 1 without wings, they are 2 separate data sheets, and you're only restricted in that you can take 3 of each data sheet because it's not battle line. So yeah, you could still take 6. Because you can take 3 normal and 3 with wings. Thank you for the 5 Pip as well, you're a hero. Dang Skippy, thank you for the gifted membership. I think it's, is it giving it out? Is it actually working? Is the gifted membership actually working now? It did give out Dang Skippy's gifted membership. It hasn't yet given out Joshua's. Joshua. It has given out Chris's. Some of them are catching up. It worries me when it doesn't give out gifted memberships. It literally costs me money. So I know it's a bit of a tedious way of doing it, right? Spending an hour and a half reading through the rulebook, but the key thing for me there is picking out some of the biggest differences. Coherency's changed. Pile-in, consolidation, and charging has changed massively. Fly keyword movement has changed. Aircrafts have changed. There's some cool extra stratagems in there as well. Engagement range has changed. A lot of these aren't massive changes to the whole way that Warhammer 40k works. Right, there's some new keywords in there that we went through, some new abilities. Advancing with assault weapons and shooting doesn't suffer a penalty anymore. Heroic intervention can be done on units, and it's now a 2 CP stratagem rather than an automatic thing for characters. Right, if characters join units, you must allocate wounds to body. There's some tweaks. There's some big changes and some tweaks, right? And the tweaks is the bits that I personally really wanted to pull out of this particular chat about the rulebook. So let's go into a review, okay? There is a couple of little things that I am a bit sad about, but I understand. And there's a couple of little things that I'm not entirely sure on, okay? The first one that I'm not sure on is the change to aircraft and the fact that you must start in hover or in supersonic, and you can't change all game. I'm not sure about that necessarily. I would have to play. We didn't really see a lot of aircraft all the way through 9th. There was a couple of occurrences where aircraft were pretty strong in certain orc builds, etc. But on the whole, I wasn't sold on that. I'm a little bit sad that for me as a combat player, I lost a lot of my movement shenanigans. But let's be clear, that movement shenanigans was in fact jank. It was jank. I am open to the fact that it was jank. I like the fact that they've closed a lot of that down. And the reason why some of that was jank is because it did create feel bad moments for opponents, okay? I like the increase of core stratagems, and I really love some of the core stratagems that are in there. I like tank shock quite a lot. I like the grenade stratagem. I think that's quite cool. I love the challenge stratagem. I think that's amazing. I love those. I'm a big fan of Hero Hammer. I love the bringing back that kind of play. Okay, although I'm not so happy about the movement shenanigans changing in the pile-in and the charge phase, etc. And I understand why it's happened. I really love the fights first, fights normal mechanic, and I really love the cleanliness and clarity of it, because that became, even towards the end of 9th, as a person who plays all the time, as a person who referees GTs, as a person who runs tournaments, at times it's like, wait, so who's got what ability where? And who, right, hang on, tell me everything. Oh my God, right? It was a nightmare. We've got a fights first step, a fights normal step. If you've got fights first, you're in that step. If you've got fights normal, you're in that step. Finish all the ones in that step first. Finish all the ones in that step first. If you've both got ones in each step, you take it in turns. Starting with the player whose turn it isn't. Super simple, super nice. Really, really like that, okay? On the whole, 10th edition is kind of a 9.5, in my opinion. A lot of the core stuff and how it works isn't massively changed. Even data sheets, they're laid out neater, they're laid out nicer. We've seen them on the Warhammer community page, but they haven't changed immensely. You have a movement characteristic, you have a wounds characteristic, you have a toughness characteristic, you have a saving throw and a potential invulnerable saving throw. You have a leadership characteristic. The one we've gained is objective control, and they've moved ballistic skill and weapon skill onto the weapons profile, but again, it's neater and it's tidier. What weapon am I firing? Here's everything I need to know about that weapon. I'm a big fan of this. This edition, after ranting and raging so hard yesterday about what they did to a lot of the units that existed, I cannot praise them enough at the moment for this particular rulebook. I have some issues. They have been, in some places, incredibly specific about how things work and how they've clarified things to remove some of the problems that have existed previously in 9th edition. Right? For example, if you arrive via deep strike, you must arrive within 9 inches horizontal, or more than 9 inches away horizontally. Okay? Whereas currently people are going, well, you're actually 5 inches up, so with a bit of trigonometry, I can end 3 inches away from you. And then if I charge, I only have to charge 3 to be an engagement. And people were just gaming that shit. And they've now gone, hey, it's horizontal. It's always horizontal, right? So I like that kind of stuff. I really like that kind of stuff. And I think that's a positive. There's some other questions that I'm not so sure about, right? There's some things that exist that will need clarifying. There's certain things that say you have to half certain things and don't tell you whether you round up or down. There's certain things that have sustained hits that can also be given sustained hits from another ability, and they don't tell me whether I add them both together. I don't have a line that says if a unit has 2 instances of sustained hits applied to the same weapon and they're both sustained hits 1, it becomes sustained hits 2, or it stays sustained hits 1. They don't tell you that. Now, my assumption is that it becomes sustained hits 2. They don't tell you that, right? But what I'm doing there is I'm really nitpicking at little gaps that exist right now that will probably be FAQ'd very, very quickly. I am always sad when a new book already sounds like it needs some FAQs before we've even got to playing it, but I am nitpicking. On the whole, and I can most definitely speak to for my whole team about this rulebook, incredibly positive feeling about this right now. The team is very excited to start playing 10th edition. And Joe has said a few times that he thinks the start of 10th edition is going to be the Wild West, and we're all going to be gunslinging, and it's going to be crazy. But I think this is a great first edition of new edition of Warhammer 40k. I am really excited about this, and most of what I've read is relatively easy to understand, makes sense the big thing for me, makes sense from a narrative perspective, and just remove some of that, like I said, really janky stuff that exists, right? Just really janky stuff that exists. So, and the reason why, removing janky stuff exists is important for the hobby is because it removes a thing that I hate the most. It removes feels bad moments, okay? Now, for me personally, 9th was plagued with feels bad moments. Whether that's movement jank through charging and piling and consolidating and being able to tag something that your opponent didn't think you could get anywhere near, but because you just game the system slightly, you've managed to do that. Whether it's the ability to be like, oh, I've got a super fights last, so haha, you charge me. Like, everything's really clear now. Even fights first, like, you know, if you come across the lion and his data card's on the table and you see fights first at the top of his data sheet, you know if you charge him, he could be fighting you first. You know that, okay? And whether you're happy with it or not, at least you know that going into the fight, right? So everything seems cleaner, everything seems neater. I think the big thing for me is we're not getting bogged down in massive amounts of rules and auras and overlaps and nonsense and stratagems and secrets that people were keeping to themselves and just going, haha, I can do this thing. Like, fuck you, dickhead. Why didn't you tell me you were going to do that? Okay, gotcha moments are one of the worst things that can ever exist in a game like this, and because of the layers and complexity of 9th edition, they were everywhere, right? Everything now is on a data sheet that you could have on the at the table with you, okay? And if you watch our battle report tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning, if you are live with us, and we have the data cards with us for the units that we're using, and you will see how fucking easy. We are using them fresh, these two armies tomorrow. I'm doing this on purpose. I am doing this on purpose. Tomorrow, on purpose, we are using two armies fresh. Now, we have read the rules for these armies, but we haven't committed them to memory. I haven't given Joe all the stuff to take home and study. Joe and I are going to do it live on stream to show you how easy it is to pick up, right? We're just going to show you because it's amazing. Thank you. Hopefully it makes sense. Come on, Liam. Pick up. Notice what? Notice what? Models towing into a ruin cannot see through it, as they have to be wholly within it to see out of it. Enemy models outside the ruin can see those towing model, therefore can shoot them. Yeah, that's cool. But that's all. That's good though, right? That's a good change, right? I hate towing on terrain anyway. Thank you, you two. Thank you, Escape and Tyler. I know I keep seeing my name popping up, right? Is there no general rule that says things do not stack? No, actually the opposite. If things don't stack, they specifically state you can't get more than +1 to your saving throw. You can't get more than +1 to your hit roll. You can't get more than +1 to your wound roll. Okay. So there are you can stack things naturally. You can stack 4 +1 to hits on a dice roll, but you only benefit from a single +1. So if you stack 2 +1 to hits together and a player's got a -1 to hit, you still get your +1 to hit. Does that make sense? 2 pluses, 1 minus, ends up on a -1. If you stack 3 +1s together and your opponent's got -1, 1 -1, you still only get 1 +1. Okay, right? Heard it here first. Liam and Joe are doing it live on stream tomorrow. We're doing it. We're doing it. I'm trying to do this as fresh. I had an idea, right? We had a couple of ideas for the stream tomorrow, okay, at 10 o'clock in the morning. And one of the things we were thinking about doing was a pre-recorded and lots of graphics and lots of showing you. And I was like, you know what I think would be really interesting? I don't know how many people are going to be doing this, but what I think will be really interesting at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning is that this new edition, this simplified but not simple edition of Warhammer 40,000, what happens if we just go live without... I've read this book a couple of times, granted, right? But But what happens if we show you guys, can we pick up these armies live on stream? Because if we can pick up these armies and play them, and by the end of the game be relatively comfortable what the units do, live on stream, I think they've achieved their goals. I think it's simplified, not simple. I think they've achieved their goals. They've made it more accessible. If at the end of the stream we don't know how this is going to go. We could get to the end of the stream and be scratching our hair out, pulling our hair out, and be like, "What the fuck is going on?" Right? And then they haven't achieved it. So we're live testing tomorrow. Have no idea how it's going to go. We haven't played this. We haven't played this game yet. I've played it once. Joe and I haven't played it together yet. So we'll see. Okay, we'll see. What armies are you playing tomorrow? We are playing tomorrow Space Marines versus Tyranids. Joe's Tyranids. I gave him first dibs. I'm Space Marines. Okay. But we are honestly, we are learning live tomorrow. Okay. Can you get loose to record you trying to get Joe to remember the script? God, Pip, absolutely not. Can Joe do 10 a.m? Yeah, he's very excited. Joe's very excited about 10. And so, you know, I've actually had this rule book in hand for about a month now. So a big shout out to Games Workshop. Like I said, a massive thank you to them for supplying this to us. I have to tell you that they supply it to us free of charge. We don't pay for it. They just send it to us to review. They do not tell us what we have to say. They do not tell us what our reviews have to look like. They give us none of that whatsoever. We are just using, we're just being given this to review, and we can be honest about it. And I think if you guys watched the channel yesterday, you know that if nothing else, I am 100% honest about how I feel. This has been one of the, like, a lot of people have been asking questions that I can't answer when we go, we don't want to play 9th edition. Now you guys know, because today was coming and this was coming, right? Using just the Leviathan box. Yes, we'll be using just the box tomorrow. I'm not supposed to say that, to be fair, but we will be. Exactly what we do, right? If you are learning live, do you already have the points for the models? We do know that they're both combat patrol boxes, so they should be relatively even points-wise, right? Should be. Do you own a Ford? Oh, God, no. Why would anyone own a Ford? Why would anyone own a Ford, Drew? Oh, God, no. A tank partially within a ruin cannot shoot through it, but it itself can be shot, says Escape. I actually think the terrain rules or stuff are better, personally. Movement is irrelevant. The ruling makes a situation where it is impossible for you to shoot a target that can shoot you with them having indirect fire. What? In about? What are the chances of beating Kimmy's DA this edition? You'll be fine. Stranger not gonna help, but you'll be fine. Honestly, absolutely. I think you'll beat them. I don't think the DA are going to be anywhere near as broken as they have been in 9th. I think they've learned a lot. I personally believe, although they dropped a massive ball yesterday, I personally believe that they have learned a lot of lessons from 9th edition. I personally believe that, okay? Just the box on the minis in the box too. We're just going to use the box. Just move the box around, right? Liam got too excited about the rules and has forgotten the like, subscribe bells, and the likes show it. They do. The likes do show it, actually, yeah. I've got too excited about the rules, right? What chapter are they painted up as? Ours have been painted up as, if you look at the thumbnail ready for tomorrow, Heresy Era Dark Angels we painted ours up as. I was going to buy loads of Heresy Era Contemptors for him as well. In fact, I wanted to put tons and tons and tons of Heresy Era stuff in this army. So to be clear with yesterday's rant, Games Workshop has lost a ton of money out of me. I was looking at putting Spartans and Leviathans in this new Dark Angels army that we're playing for the channel. All gone. So if your Decimator is towing terrain, it can't shoot the Leviathan on the other side of the terrain. I mean, they can't shoot anyway, David, because they went by the field. Anyway, how do you guys feel like, right? I'm conscious I've waffled a lot. I'm conscious it's not maybe the most exciting of streams, but I wanted to get out there as one of the first. What do you guys think of this new core rulebook? Have you been downloading it? Have you been reading along? How do you feel this sits on the whole? I want a generic kind of feeling from you people. Is this a good edition or is this a terrible edition? Are you excited for it or are you not so excited for it now you've seen the core rules? I think it's really, 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 really good on the whole. A couple of little, problems with it, but really good on the whole. Right? I heard somewhere that the design team was not in favour of yesterday. Is that just BS or is there any truth? I don't work in GW. I can't, you know, I can't really comment on that, mate, I'm afraid. Pour one out for the horror stories and stuff. Yeah, Kyrioth. Welcome, by the way, bud. If you saw my stream yesterday, I was a very angry man. You put me in a good mood again for 10th edition, bud, so I appreciate it. But we all should, and this is what I'm saying, right? I'm never going to be a channel who hates on Games Workshop for the sake of hating on Games Workshop, and I'm never going to be on a channel who's positive about Games Workshop for the sake of being positive about Games Workshop. For me, personally, the biggest thing is to be honest with you people, maintain my integrity, so that you trust my reviews and you trust what I'm saying about things. Yesterday was a monumental dropping the ball situation for Games Workshop as far as I'm concerned. They made a massive mistake, and it was a terrible idea. And I'll die on that hill, and I think they should reverse their decision, and I'll die on that hill too. However, this, which they've been working on for a long time, is actually a very good job, well done, in my opinion. On the whole, again, there's little gaps in here that I'm a bit meh, right? But this was a job well done, and this is what frustrates me. This is where I almost feel like yesterday was we'll put it out a day before everyone starts talking about the core rules. Okay. I feel like that's what's gone on here. I feel like there's been a degree of, we'll drop this massive shit bombshell, right? And then all the creators will go live the next day with their releases. We'll be putting a battle report out. We'll put the rules out. We'll bury that bombshell in overwhelming positivity about the new event, right? And I just have to think that this is a bit premeditated, especially considering we knew about this. We didn't know about that. Right? Anyway, some people, I'll probably actually play it, says Mordy Hammer. Good man. Less fiddly bits with raw interactions, not having to order movement is fine, 100%. I have already printed it because, well, paperback is just nice to have. Absolutely. Rules seem good. I like how many less pages there will be to turn to play a game. Core rules look nice, but so do knights. It's the codexes that do the fisting. 100%, Dave. I absolutely agree with you there. The core rules are great, but the faction rules are questionable so far. Elliot, again, points will tell us everything as to whether it's good or bad there, I think. I'm worried because I felt this good after reading Ninth's core rules and we saw how Ninth went with the codexes. Thing is, Razor, so I agree with you, mate, but the thing is that's based simply on the codexes rather than on the rules. And we do know that to start with, this is all going to be indexed, so I'm more positive. I love everything except line assault rules. I hate getting shot in my sword from a jet bike spear. Yeah, I mean, I hate that too. It seems like it's a bit like Preparation H. Very good on the whole. I wasn't able to chat, but I did catch most of it. Thanks, John. You're a legend. I'm excited for it. My buddy that I mostly play with will be happier for the melee and not just me murdering his tower in close combat all the time, says Tyler. Chris says, finding it difficult to care after recent bullshit, but this stream has improved that a bit. I'm glad, man. I'm happy about that. We shouldn't, like, we absolutely, like, to be very clear, mate, we absolutely shouldn't just let them off for yesterday. We shouldn't just forget about it, but we should champion when they do things right. And for me, this rulebook is something that they've done right. The last time I was this excited was when I bought Rogue Trader all those years ago. So, Daryl, you're going to play? Good. Seems like transports are better in a bunch of small ways. Absolutely. Transports are definitely going to see more play now, I think. Just to clarify, you can bring up to 3 of the same unit unless they are battle line. If so, you can bring up to 6, and that is no matter what they are, right? Yeah, absolutely. But the 6 is also for dedicated transports, Lord Adam, not just battle line. 3 data sheets. 3 of the same data sheet for any data sheet, unless it's an epic hero, and 6 if it's battle line or dedicated transport. Epic heroes 1, obviously. You can bring 1 Angron, and you can bring 1 Lion, and you can bring 1 Elder Althran if they've all got epic heroes, and then name characters, they will all have epic hero, right? But 6 battle line, which is your old troop choices, 6 dedicated transports if they're the same data sheet. But assuming Rhinos and Razorbacks have dedicated transport, you could bring 6 Rhinos, 6 Razorbacks at least. It's not that you can take 6 dedicated transports. You can just take 6 of a data sheet with dedicated transport in its keywords, right? I play Narrative Apocalypse and 1,000 points boarding actions, so these don't affect me, says Trader Garsman. I mean, I appreciate you for sitting through the stream then, man. Core rules look good, but didn't they say that 1 character would be attached to a unit with a few exceptions, but then we've seen 3 characters in DA and 2 characters in Death Guard. Death Guard sucks, though. Does Death Guard suck? Excited to get back into playing. Part of the hobby seems relatively straightforward to learn. Good man. I feel bad for Death Guard players. They've been shafted that bad. I mean, I wasn't massively excited when I saw their preview, to be fair. I love how universal rules are and how most of what you need for units are on a single card. 100% absolutely. Not a fan of Ruins rules and not a fan of cover granting a bonus to armor saves. Demons still get shafted. Cover should grant a field no plane. I mean, so I actually wish cover had kind of gone back to the 7th iteration where it gave you a different save. It wasn't a feel no pain, it was a different save. So demons still got it, because yes, demons still don't benefit from cover, which is a bit shit. I think yesterday was about getting to more people to play Heresy. Probably right, absolutely. Today the Sky Flowers are launched. Everyone knows you let the bad news out on the Friday but did it on the Thursday. I really hope they revisited their decision with Legends. That was one thing that really hated about the new edition. Absolutely. I'll just start playing Homehammer anyway, says Will. Points mean prizes. I should clarify in that I've spent most of the last 2 years painting or other stuff. Ross, Mordy Hammer, that's amazing though. As long as you're enjoying yourself, that's the thing that matters, right? Ross, as a new player, I can't wait to finally play this game. It looks a lot easier to understand, and I'm looking forward to seeing all the different roles units will have and make armies varied and interesting. Varied and interesting armies is one of the things I'm most excited about for 9th edition, for 10th edition, sorry. One of the things, I tell you what, one of the things that's been really underrated, in my opinion, that I'm the most positive about, is how you build your army. Okay, the muster army step is a thing that we've kind of just gone, okay, cool. And no one's actually stopped and thought, wait, there is no restrictions apart from I have to have a character. The rule of 3 is something we're just used to nowadays. The rule of 6 for battle line and dedicated transports is nice, but we didn't actually really ever see many people going more than 6 battle line unless people like Manny were running fucking 5 million racks, right? But on the whole, we haven't really focused on how important this list building stage for 10th edition is. You basically can do what the fuck you want, and I think that's amazing. Like, I really, 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 really cannot stress that I hope that it means that when we rock up to tournaments in the future, we see 50 players at a tournament with 50 different varied lists. I cannot tell you how many times I go to a tournament and I really hate it when you go, oh, there's 5 demon players. Oh, their 5 lists are basically the same. They're basically the same list. Normally there's like 200-300 points of the difference. Oh, there's 3 Space Marine players. All of them have got Eradicators. All of them have got Blade Guard. Right? I'm hoping, and if we look at the end of 9th edition and the introduction of the detachment they brought at the end of 9th edition, I'm hoping that was them stepping us gently into this and going, hey, this is the new way you build factions from now on, even in competitive play, right? I'm really positive. I really like the way that you actually are able to build a faction currently in 10th edition, and that this is something that, again, people are focusing on some of the stratagems and people are focusing on the changes to fighting and fights first, and they're all positive things, but for me this is one of the biggest, right? It's one of the biggest. You can build a proper guard army again. You can. I'm back. Sorry about that. Don't you worry, Scoon. It's fine. No restrictions until GT pack adds them. If the GT pack adds them, who knows? Like if we look at the last GT pack and we look at the Tempest of War, not Tempest of War, I can't remember what it was fucking called. The last attachment that we were using. It kind of was the same, but not quite. It was kind of the same, but skinned in 9th edition. And I think this is just really positive, right? And when we get points so that we can actually play the game, who knows, Tyler? Who knows? I hate the hazardous rule. In the past, if I failed, I could allocate my worms to anybody in the unit. Now I just completely lose that weapon. Yeah, but Templar, that's exactly how it should work. That's exactly how it should work. If I squeeze my plasma gun trigger too hard and it explodes, a bloke down the line with a chainsaw shouldn't be the one that dies. In fact, it was the plasma. It was always the model was destroyed anyway. Hazardous is a lot more narrative. I'm actually pro hazardous. I think it's a good change personally, right? I think it's a good change personally. Stephen, thank you for the 5 gifted memberships. You're an absolute legend. Appreciate you. You're still going to see what people will find, what is best, most point efficient, and spam them. Unfortunately, you probably will, Mr. Phoenix, absolutely. But I think we've got a better chance of seeing more varied now. I'm kind of salted that the Lion has stolen Gilliman's 3+ invulnerable save. Yeah, but Marius, he has got the Emperor's Shield, right? Stop saying interesting things for a minute. Soul grind a data card on other stream. You should have been losing that special weapon the plasma blew up. Exactly, Tyler. 100%. 100%. Bloodstone Fortress got gifted membership. YouTube is struggling to give out gifted memberships right now, people. So if you know 40k fans who aren't subbed to the channel, go and tell them. Get them to come and sub very, very quickly, right? Then they can turn on gifted memberships. Then I can use up all these gifted memberships. And they get a free look into the channel very, very quickly. And they can go, oh, actually, this is good. This is good. Let's stick around here, right? Can't wait to deploy my 3 Rhinos behind terrain, disembark my 30 Interceptors 3 inches away, move them 12, and then have them charge. Threat range becomes 2d6 plus 15 inches. Okay. Hazardous is very good, says Dr. Goblin. I agree. I love the new Haz rule, if only because the plasma gun blowing up is now disconnected from it blasting the enemy. Yeah, I like it. I think it's really good. I think it's much more narrative. Like, much more narrative. Much more narrative. I actually am a person who is a fan of the fact that even if it successfully wounds, it could still kill you. So it could be that you pull that trigger on that plasma gun, you hold that trigger, it lets out its beam of energy and still overheats and blows up in your hands. I think it's better. Honestly. That's because we broke the memberships yesterday. Yeah, it partly is, then. Yeah, absolutely. So Shaky's camera voting on a game stream, says Pip. Twitch Warhammer, it's not good at all, but they are showing data cards. I mean, how can they get that so wrong? Why don't they come to some of the experts in streaming, right? If you watch out, you'd have motion sickness. Jack says, I'm still grey. You could choose to become a member all yourself, Jack, if you want to. Become a member all by yourself. You can do that. I would urge anyone who's got a grey name to become a member all by themselves, right? I do like that if you shoot 400 shots, you still only get one chance to fail. Yeah, I mean, you know, this is the other bonus as well. Like, if you're a multiple shot plasma weapon, you're still only possibly, you're still only rolling one test. You've only got one chance of getting that one, right? And you can re-roll a hazardous test with a CP as well. But you can only re-roll one of them. Gone are the days where, oh, I've rolled 6 ones on my big unit of plasma dudes. I can pick them all up and re-roll them because of an aura. It's good, right? What do you think the standard battle size is going to be? Still 2k? Yeah, Maris, I 100% think it'll stay 2k. Absolutely think it will stay 2k. No doubt at all, in my mind. It's absolutely what me and the team are planning to play anyway, but I can't see it changing. Right, I can't see it changing at all. Oh, a couple more have come through. Look at that. Right, says they are releasing more data sheets. Can't wait. Would you want a what would you want? Who would you want a reveal of? I just want them all. I'll be honest with you. I just want everything out now, Ross. It's battle size has always been 2,000 points. Now it hasn't. 7th edition, it was typically 1,750 actually. Oh look, they have found the button. There we go. People are getting their gifted memberships through. Right. Battle size has always been 4x6. I actually missed the big battlefields of 4x6, to be honest with you. Although it made my studio much easier with the new size. Would you say that the rules will be easy to learn for someone with dyslexia? This is a hard one to answer and be honest, simply because I don't know how bad your dyslexia is. However, if you stick to using the bullet points to reinforce what you've read, I think it's definitely better. The problem is, for people that do have things like dyslexia, the problem is they have a lot of... The community is absolutely plagued with fucking rules lawyers who will try and bend the rules in their favour based on some grammatical kind of theory, which I really hate. I mean, let's face it, they're all virgins. And it really annoys me. And so Games Workshop have to write a rule that could be a sentence that they have to stick in 17 different fucking like qualifying factors to and exclusions, just that little rules. I go, oh, so you're actually saying that on the 3rd night of the 4th moon I can do that? Oh, piss off and go and play a different game. But yeah, so they have to. So that makes it sometimes quite wordy to read, right? They do sometimes make it quite wordy to read. But I don't think it's going to be that bad, and I think the game is simpler to understand overall, right? So I'm massively more positive about it than I was before. And to be fair though, in seriousness, I actually don't think 9th was, as a core edition, I actually don't think 9th was that bad. I actually praise them for the release of 9th edition as a core edition, and 9th isn't a bad core edition. They balls up 9th with the codexes. They could have indexed 9th, and the core edition would have still been good and usable and playable. They could have done that. Personally, I'm actually glad they did what they've done with 10th edition, if I'm honest with you. But the core edition of 9th was good. The core edition of 8th was good. Okay? So, it's... Their core editions, even the core edition of 7th wasn't that bad. The concern is codex creep. And the concern is always codex creep. And I think the thing that typically fucks an edition is what they release in the codexes and how they get this weird power creep and these crazy rules that they come up with, which definitely aren't in keeping with the edition when they first launched it. But hey, I'm writing these rules 2 years after I've launched the edition. I've completely changed how I think about this edition now, so I'm going to write the rules completely differently. Okay, so I would argue that the best thing they could do, and they probably haven't done this because of time, but the best thing they could have done is written the 10th edition rulebook, written all of the index cards, and have already written all the codexes. Everything is written all at the same time. Okay, and then they slowly release it over time. That's what I feel like they probably could have done and should have done. And then they go, hey, we still keep our long release schedule for making money, but we've made everything at the same time. It's all relevant to the same current rule set. Okay? That's what they could. They won't have done that because R&D time and development time, there's no way they've done that. I've got absolutely no doubt there's no way they've done that. But 8th and 7th and 9th, the core rules weren't that bad, right? They just weren't that bad at all. So they did need a reset. They didn't necessarily need to reset the core edition. I think they should have done. Like I said to you already, right? Some of the changes that they made, I'm super positive about. The big thing for me, the big change for me that I'm most positive about, as I've already said, is the way you build your list. And with the detachment rules that they've showcased, and with what they've said, if they stick to it, if they stick to exactly what they've said, whereby when you choose a different detachment, you unplug one set of detachment rules, which includes enhancements, stratagems, and the detachment rules itself, and you plug in new sets of detachment rules, including enhancements, stratagems, and detachment rules itself. And none of them stack, and none of them are extra, and none of them are in addition to. If they stick to that, they potentially find it quite hard to break it with a codex. Okay? In my opinion. I'm quite positive. We're 2 hours in. We're going to call it there. You guys have been incredible. Thank you so much to Dazran for trying to give 5 more memberships, and thank you to Fraser for trying to give another membership. It's just not really working right now. They're not really giving them out, which is making me very sad, because to give you some reference, chat, if you are people out there who aren't members and are thinking about members, the only way we can really do this is because of memberships, if we're honest. Super chats are helpful, super chats are amazing, but the only way we can really do this is because of members. Something like 75% of the channel's revenue each month is based on members and gifted members. Okay, so being members is very important to us. So if you're thinking about taking the plunge and taking a membership out at $4.99, please just go ahead and grab it. Try out the Discord server. Come and hang out with us. Look at some of the other benefits. One of the only benefits not listed on the YouTube page, because it won't let me, is that for the Jarl tier, you get entered into a giveaway every single month as well. Every single month, you get gifted into you get the opportunity to enter into a Jarl's only giveaway for a combat patrol box of your choice. Okay, so please think about supporting our work. We're about to start going crazy as well, right? Things are about to start getting busy. We do still have a 40k After Dark stream tonight. We'll look ever so briefly at the Titans rules. Luce will ding a bell at 10 o'clock, and then we'll just drink mead and enjoy ourselves for the rest of the evening. And then tomorrow at 10 a.m, Joe's here. Chris is here. We are playing this for the first time. Joe is playing this for the brand new first time ever. All right? Come and join us. And tonight, if the memberships still aren't working, well, then you're all going to have to just super chat 500 quid's worth, right? Okay, deal? Before you go, if you just hit those magic buttons for us, you guys are incredible. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. I love you all very, very dearly. You're incredible people. You're an incredible audience. You're an incredible community. And I couldn't be both more proud and more honoured to be part of you all. You're all amazing. I love you so much. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, and we'll see you in the next one.